Pontiac T37. Oh, man. Okay, Steve, let me know when you've got this thing dug out.
All you have to do, Freiberger, is go in the driver's door, sit down, reach under the seat, get the key, start it up, and drive it off.
No way.
Yeah.
Okay. Ow! My socks are already full of foxtails.
That's why I didn't want to go over here, because all the stuff gets stuck in your socks.
Oh, these have thorns.
Yeah, that's the part that's even worse.
Ow! Now I'm all full of foxtails. Look at that.
My side's not as bad as your side.
There we go. Oh man, I forgot how good this car is though. There's weeds growing inside it.
How is that even possible? Hasn't even been here that long.
Oh wow, there's a fuel pump running. This thing might run.
I'm telling you, just drive it away.
Is it gonna backfire and set your weeds on fire?
I hope not.
Whoa!
Told you.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Okay. No power steering.
Oh.
Whoa, there's a big hole there.
Oh, the trunk lid popped open.
Wow, I nailed it. That was way easier than I expected.
Oh, yeah.
I hope this is low on trans fluid.
I know.
Something's weird. I can't believe we actually drove this into the shop. So the car we're dealing with here is a 1971 Pontiac T37. Finnegan and I rescued this thing from L&L Classics in Idaho, where it was abandoned for who knows how many years. The last sticker on the plate is 1982. We got it running and driving and cruised the thing around, and I got it stuck on the launch ramp for Evel Knievel's Snake River jump. Finally, we got it back here to Dulcich's place, where it's been rotting for, I don't know, something like a year. I couldn't believe it fired right up. The engine is a Pontiac 400, and obviously somebody swapped it in from a full-size car because it's got a turbo 400 transmission with the long tail shaft extension, which would indicate the B-body car instead of the A-body. This thing is basically the underpinnings of a Chevelle, but it's a Pontiac, so it's going to be fairly easy to work on. And the big thing that we got to deal with here is that the suspension's all sagged out. I don't know if you've noticed it sits like this, and the other thing is that the brakes essentially don't work at all. So those are the things we're going to fix. First up, the problem I'm noticing now is that the dipstick shows like this much overfilled on the engine oil, so I want to drain that out and put in what would be the proper amount of oil, because I think we all know how Pontiacs end with too much oil in them, if you've seen the episode of Roadkill with Finnegan's White Firebird at One Lap of America. Anyway, I'm gonna watch Dulcich change the oil on this thing, and then we're gonna go out for some 6-clod testing.
Conked it out.
The ride quality is pretty good, but the suspension is pashed.
This thing might even rival the Crusher Impala on this road.
Yeah, the key to the GM coil spring suspension is to drive it for 200,000 miles and wear it out.
Oh no, it gets completely improved.
Oh,
Man, the handling is kind of a little loose.
it is. How about the brakes? Oh!
A little horrible, but they work.
Whoa! That was valve float. Oh, it went to neutral. When I did the corner, it kicked the linkage.
I saw that.
Wow, the T37's a little bit of a wallowing mess.
Yeah, it is.
I feel like it'll roll over at our donut shop.
No way. Wow, it handles really well.
This is actually pretty nice.
You can pull out of it before the dust cloud catches up. We'll be golden. That was a nice little tire squeak.
That felt like a 70s cop movie.
I know. It was perfect. That's what it reminded me of.
T-37?
It was named after a Russian tank from World War II.
Well, that would be cool. That's
Yeah.
not it.
No?
So, in 1970 and 1971, they dropped the Tempest as the lowest trim level.
Oh.
They replaced it with the T-37. T-37's an option code, just like C-28 or
Oh, really?
LS6 or any of that stuff. Yeah.
I did not know that.
Now you are edumacated.
Yeah.
This one is pretty trick because it came with those factory sword stripes on the side. They also had the GT37, which is the high performance version.
This one's kind of turned into that with the 400 swap.
Someone did swap it in. This is original 350 car. Wow, this car's awesome. Do you think this thing does burnout?
That was really bad wheel hop.
Look at it.
Oh, yeah.
It's a one-legger.
Yeah.
That's a little embarrassing. Okay, 6 quad. So here's the plan. Cast your mind back to the Vanishing Paint episode when we revisited that 70 Challenger. We came out here and we had to test suspension on it before and after. We did the Roadkill Garage 6 Clod test.
Yeah.
Think of a dirt clod as a Roadkill pylon. And you'll see that we're about to run a slalom here. Ready, Dolchek?
Oh, yeah. More than ready.
Okay. I am fully clodded. All right, Dulcich, you're gonna drive because I drove the VP.
Okay, man. Looking forward to it.
Ooh, this has no seat belts.
Oh, that sucks. I've got the steering wheel to hold on to, though.
I'm gonna be holding on.
All right.
Sorry if it seems like I'm dating you or something, but I'm worried about no seatbelt. And now. Oh.
I'm holding the transmission.
And, okay, 704.
That's really good.
Hit the quad.
No, I didn't.
That was 681
Okay.
with quad penalties.
That was already there.
You hit a quad.
We'll have to review the footage.
$659.
And it was clean.
Yes, I'll give you that one. All right, see if you can
Getting the
repeat
hang
it.
of this.
Okay, there you go, 656. Clean.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, 659 and 656. You one more 650 and I'm calling it.
All right.
There you go, 656. I like the repeatability on that.
Yeah,
Go check.
yeah. I think we got it.
Okay, 656. That's our number right there.
Yeah. That's what I'm talking about, Freiberger.
Good one.
Woo. Woo. That was great.
Okay, so we ran the 6 Clod in 6.55 seconds, so that's our bogey. I'm gonna put our bogey on the wall here. There we go. Let's go get the boxes of stuff and find out what I ordered.
All right.
Okay, it doesn't look like I actually got that much stuff. I think I didn't want to go full pro touring, ruin the ride quality. I just wanted to like have the thing sit level and have good springs and shocks and maybe exhaust that wasn't horrible. I noticed I got both 2-inch and 1-inch drop springs. Steve's enjoying that sandwich over there. All right, moment of truth. Is it an assembled spindle and brake assembly? Yes. Okay, that is gonna drop right on. What else do we have? Bilstein shocks. I went all out. So I think what I'm gonna do is start off by measuring the wheel lip height on all 4 corners so that we can tell you people like exactly how much we altered the car with the BMR springs. Wow, that's weird. Both sides are 26. To me, this side of the car really looks like it's leaning down. That's strange. Okay, thing actually sits pretty level.
People on Instagram love my sandwich.
Okay, we're opening the front suspension bag of worms. What I'm trying to show you here is that you don't have to get it right, just get it running. And the suspension version of that is we're not gonna be replacing every bushing and all the ball joints and all the tie rod-ons and everything like that. I'm just gonna fix the biggest disasters, which are the brakes and the springs themselves and the shocks. So what I'm gonna do to begin with is I'm gonna get the whole spindle and brake assembly off so that we can get the spring out, which you gotta be very careful with. Stay tuned for those tips. We're gonna have to take upper ball joint, lower ball joint, brake line, tie rod end, and shock absorber all apart. But I've already run into a problem. I've got the nut loose on the upper ball joint. On the bottom ball joint, the nut won't come loose because the stud in the ball joint is turning with the nut. And I hope I'm gonna show you how to fix it without it being a complete high cursing job, but we'll find out. I'm gonna need Steve to roll that jack in.
Guide me in, Freiberger.
I will guide you precisely.
I know you will. The eye of Freiberger.
Wow, that spring is shot.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go. The weight is off. So now that we have all that load on it, I will attempt to loosen that nut once again. Okay, it's the moment of truth. Ooh, it's working. Score. Relief.
Yeah.
Let me take the shock apart. All right, the shock is now loose. Go. That is an original GM shock absorber right there. Never changed. Now we're gonna take the spring out and I'm gonna give you massive safety warnings, and then when we actually do it, it's gonna look like absolutely nothing and you're gonna think that I'm overly paranoid. But once again, the compressed stored energy in a coil spring, if it flies out of there and hits you in the face, it can hurt you very, very devastatingly badly. But we're gonna do this carefully. We've got a jack underneath the lower control arm. Right now, both of the nuts are on the ball joint studs. I'm gonna reach in and remove both of those and clear, and then Steve's gonna let the jack down slowly. You feel like I'm overly paranoid on this job?
No, you gotta be careful because it can kill you.
Yeah, that's the short version. This can kill you. Now, I'm gonna clear, and Steve's gonna let that down slowly. There we go.
It still has a little tension on it.
Yeah, see what I mean when I said that that looked like nothing? That's because we did it carefully. However, this spring is still under tension in there. I'm gonna have to get a pro bar and pop it out of there. And when I do, it can still like fly, bounce, hit you in the face and everything. You gotta be careful, which is why Steve's gonna do it, because Steve is the crowbar master.
Boom, comes right out. Well, this side's all done. Now, if I can get Freiberger to work as efficiently on the other side, we'll be done in no time flat.
Man, I thought we were gonna get off easy and just slam our new disc brake assembly in place, but unfortunately, I gotta take the drum brakes apart because we need to reuse this steering arm on each side and drill it out to a bigger size. They need to go to 1/2 inch. So I'm gonna be taking this apart. Dulcich already has his apart and he's gonna start hogging holes. There's your steering arm, Steve-O.
Thank you. Okay, that's 1 down, 3 to go. I'll just flip this over and get the other hole. And then we're gonna be in business.
Stevie Baby's over there at a germ-free distance assembling these doohickeys, and you can see the brand new spindle is on the back there, and that lower hole is gonna go right onto the lower ball joint stud, like so. Next up, we're gonna have to install the coil springs. I've got our original and haggard old spring and our brand new 2-inch drop spring. We decided to install the 2-inch drop instead of the aftermarket 1-inch drop because we assumed that these springs are so sagged out that they're already at least 1 inch lower and that a 1-inch drop spring would probably raise the car. So we're gonna start at the 2-inch drop. However, you can see that the difference in height here is more than 2 inches. What we got going on is this is a much softer spring. The rate of it is gonna make it collapse a whole lot more than this one. I don't know what the numbers are. This isn't science. This is Roadkill Garage. but the lower height is going to also help us get it installed much more easily. The only other thing you need to know is, see how this one is machined or stamped flat on this edge, and this one has a pigtail on it? You want to put the pigtail down because that nestles in the lower control arm, and the flat edge seats up into the frame. So we're going to drop this thing in, and then I'm going to need Steve's help to scrunch the spring up there without dying. It's installed. Boom. That's a big moment. We got the spring in and the spindle installed. What we're gonna do now is basically mock everything up really loosely and just enough so that we can put the car on the ground and check the ride height. So Steve's gonna slam together the rotor and everything on this side, cinch a couple of nuts, not fully tighten them down yet, and I'm gonna go to the other side and do the same thing. Stand back for the big moment. Oh, you can't even get the jack out.
It's literally slammed.
Let's get the jack out and see how bad it really is. If I pick it up, can you get it out?
I think so. Try picking it up.
Oh, there you go. It's really low. I don't know. This could be fine. Current situation looks rad. Unfortunately, I think it's too low. The tires are gonna rub. And this is why we test fit it. So we're gonna fire it up and steer it both directions and just confirm what we already know, which is that it's too low. Hold it there. Yeah, that's touching. While it looks cool, it's not gonna fly for what we do. I'm actually worried going up 1 inch is not gonna help it, but let's find out.
I can assure you of one thing, Freiberger. I'm not putting those rusty stock springs back in under any circumstances.
For your information and edification, I thought I would give you the fender lip height with our 2-inch drop springs. Interestingly, on this side, it dropped the car 2.5 inches. On the other side, it's exactly 2 inches. I can't tell you exactly why this side of the car is half an inch lower. It has to have something to do with the way I've got the spring pocket seated or something like that. We do not know how much lower it'll get once it settles, once the spring wears in, once it finds its home in all the pockets and all that stuff. We're never gonna know because we're gonna change it out and lift it back up an inch and find out what the 1-inch drop springs are gonna do. I hope they work. Drop it. Oh yeah, looking pretty good.
Seems all right.
It's 1/4 inch lower than it was. Wow, I do not understand that. That's 23 inches over here.
That's what we had with the 2-inch spring. I find that very hard to believe that we could have screwed that up.
We must have put the same spring back in. There's no way.
SP034, SP034A. These two are the same part number.
How can it have lowered it a different amount on each side?
That side of the car is quite a bit heavier than that side of the car.
Because?
I don't know why, but when I put the jack down the center, it'll lift the right side of the car way more than the left. I've got to offset.
That tends to indicate that the rear springs are doing something different.
I've got to offset the jack almost 6 inches to have both front tires leave the ground evenly.
Yeah, that tends to indicate a rear spring situation.
So what you're contemplating here or suggesting is to adjust the ride height on the front suspension, we're going to change the rear springs.
Yeah. I knew it. It had something to do with the rear springs after all. So remember up front, I was seeing wildly odd measurements and I was like, it's got to have something to do with the corner balance on the rear springs. Well, easily it's because that rear spring has completely fallen out of its seat and is sitting sideways in the frame. I think it's not an installation problem up front, but we will go ahead and change these rear springs now because this one is just foobar. Okay, let's get the new springs in there and shocks and go for it.
Well, it just comes right out.
This is interesting. The stock spring is much shorter free height than the aftermarket 1-inch drop spring. I don't know what that really means. We're gonna find out. Hopefully it means that the new one will not fall out like the old one did.
There you go.
Yeah, the upper's installed. I need to jack it up more before I tighten the lowers. Okay, wheels are gonna go on, the back's gonna come down, then the front's gonna come down. Sits way taller in the back.
Wow.
Like way, like 2 inches taller. And it's still not sitting level. This is so weird. It's like we cannot get the car to sit level. It's all cattywampus again. You think it's that spring?
I don't know.
There comes a time on Roadkill Garage where we actually have to turn off the cameras and throw wrenches like an actual reality show. That's what's been happening for 3 hours as Dulcich and I are trying to troubleshoot why we could not get this car to sit level. Here's what it comes down to. These coil springs right here for the front of the car have the same part number written on them. They're a 2-inch drop. you can see that they are the same height spring. These two springs have the same part number stamped on each spring, but watch this. They're not the same spring at all. This one is marked and part numbered as a 1-inch drop spring. So is this one. But look at that. They're radically different. As a matter of fact, if I take this one and put it over here, you can see that it is in fact a 2-inch drop spring. So what we've been dealing with all day long is two springs with the same part number, one of which is a 1-inch drop coil and the other one is a 2-inch drop coil. And that's why this garbage will not sit level. So what are we gonna do? Take our stock springs, cut half a coil off of them and throw them back in the car.
I can assure you of one thing, Freiberger. I'm not putting those rusty stock springs back in under any circumstances, under any circumstances, under any circumstances.
Now he's got half a coil cut off the stock spring, which has now got a much taller free height than those aftermarket ones. And so this is gonna get unfun right now.
Ouch. Ow. That hurt my thumb.
It's in. This is going to be our first drop with half a coil cut off the stock front coil springs. I predict it does nothing. Oh, it did drop it.
It looks like it.
Ooh, we may have nailed it.
Really?
That would be really good. Oh, dude. The left-hand side of the car is still way lower.
Wow, it's way up there.
Yeah, that is half an inch higher than it was stock. And this is half an inch lower.
So
what is going on?
There's an inch difference from left to right.
Yeah,
Do you think it might be in the clocking of that thing?
it could be.
Because that's the part that hits first, and now it's to the outside where it's
Yeah.
got less leverage on the lower
Yeah,
control
it's
arm.
the clocking of this one.
Yeah.
This is getting to be like Keystone Cops around here, man. I'm getting pretty frustrated. We've had 3 sets of different front coil springs in the car, 2 different sets of rear coil springs, and every time it's lower on that left front. And I keep thinking I've found the solution. First, it was that rear coil spring that was all wedged in there sideways. Second, it was the aftermarket springs that were 2 different heights. Now, we've got these cut stock coils in here and it's doing the same thing. So I'm like racking my brain to try and figure out what is the one variable we're overlooking in all of these scenarios that's making that happen. Dulcich thinks it's just weight. That side of the car is heavier because of the steering gearbox and the battery or whatever. The only thing I've got now is that I know that I have this coil spring clocked in its bottom seat differently than I do on the other side. It was just the way it was easier to install. So I'm gonna undo that and find out if it fixes it. And if it doesn't, I'm gonna swap the springs side to side and find out what happens. And if that doesn't fix it, firebomb. That's all I gotta say. Okay, jack out. That's what you don't wanna have happen. Still wrong.
Did it help?
This is now half an inch taller than it was when we came in here. And this is half an inch lower than when we came in here. So it did absolutely nothing. Do you want to try rear springs or swap these springs side to side?
Honestly, I would cut half a coil out of the passenger side and move on.
So it doesn't bother you that we will not have actually found what the problem is? Then
No, it doesn't bother me at all. I would cut an extra half a coil out of that side, level the car, and send it down the road.
the problem with that to me is that, yeah, that fixes our cosmetic and problem and it'll drive just fine. It's no big deal. It leaves a mystery unsolved that really frustrates me.
Yeah, but I think that's all psychological because of the Freiberger precision. There's some sort of mental imbalance because one spring would be taller than the other, but that's what the car is asking for. It's saying,
So,
do this to me, please.
so even though these are the exact same springs that we drove in here with, and you cut the exact same amount off
Don't
of
trust that
them,
baseline anymore.
why?
It just doesn't make any sense. And we all observed that the car was cattywampus at some stage.
Even though it measured out perfectly level.
I just don't trust that measurement baseline. I just don't.
Do me a favor. Let's swap the coil springs side to side.
Okay.
Because if your theory is correct, it'll raise that side if these springs are not equal.
No, the springs are equal. I think this side of the car is just heavier. but we can try it. If you want to eliminate that from the realm of possibility that the spring rate on the right side is slightly more than the spring rate on the left side, even though they're identical coils.
3 different coil springs in the front, same problem every time.
Yeah, so chances are better than average that if we swap them side to side,
the same thing is going to happen.
It's going to do nothing.
Yeah, I know.
So I think the director would be wise to just cut at this point.
This is enraging.
Man, I had to just walk away from that front suspension. And in back, we changed to the 1-inch drop springs, and it's still a little too high. In fact, it might even be slightly higher than it was with the worn-out original springs. So I know we have to put the 2-inch drop back here, and I'm just going to do that to get the satisfaction of getting the job done. All right, down she comes.
Hey, Steve.
Yeah.
I promise I won't be disappointed no matter what happens, okay?
Wow, this is like an I love you moment or something. What's going on here, Freiberger?
It looks okay over here.
Yeah?
This is 26 inches, same as it was when we had the stock springs. How about yours?
This is 27 1/4.
27 1/4. It's 1.25 inches higher than over here. It's because that front is low.
Yeah, you can see the cars.
Okay, so next step, swap the spring side to side, and when that doesn't work, we're just gonna go ahead and hack the springs and make it the same and not care.
Oh, I like the idea.
This is gonna be the last step before I give up and just start cutting coils to make the car level. We swap springs side to side. Let's see what happens. Let me pick it up. Go outboard more. No. Ow!
Fuck.
Oh, that hurt. Oh, man. Oh, it hit. Oh, that hurt. Oh, wow, that hurts. I don't even know what happened. Ah, boy, that hurts. It's like I'm gun shy now.
You want me to do it?
Nah, I have to have the pleasure of victory on this thing. And safety net is on. Oh, I'm just fatigued. All right, don't you feel good knowing that's the second to last time we're gonna do that?
Yeah, we only have to do half the job next time. Ready?
Go for it.
Fixed.
Is it actually fixed?
It looks fixed to me.
That is 25 1/2, exactly what it was when we started. And this is 25 1/2. It's level, yay! We're back to where we started! 2 days!
Oh, Freiberger, you're feigning excitement.
2 things. First of all, I am vindicated. The coil spring swap side to side actually worked. Second thing, this whole episode has been a giant comedy of errors. I won't know until I see the final cut of the show whether you really have an idea or not of how many times Steve and I have changed these coil springs around, how many hours we've put into it, how many arguments we've had about it. It's been stupid. I think we've got the least amount of ultimate work done in an episode for the most amount of hours spent ever. But there are some learnings here. First, there can be multiple combinations of things going wrong at the same time that mess us all up, like a offset coil spring in the back combined with the wrong aftermarket springs in the front and so on. Second of all, when you take apart your OE springs, look at the part number tag on them, keep track of what's right and left, because what we just proved is that the coil spring over there on the left-hand side has a different rate than the one over here on the right-hand side, even though they had the same free height, meaning you put the stock coil springs right next to each other, they're the same height. Unlike aftermarket ones, which have a higher rate to them, and they are the same height and the same rate. So anyway, all that gobbledygook. Ultimately, I think we're gonna cut another coil out of this thing so that we can get a little stance out of it and get back to the 6 clod. And man, that's gonna be a glorious moment because I'm sick of this. This is the last drop, Steve, no matter what happens. So am I gonna storm out of here in a rage or am I gonna be thrilled?
Prepare to be in a rage.
Okay.
Coming down.
There we go. Done. Is it lower?
You bet your sweet petunia it is.
And then the gas shocks will bring it up a hair. I think we're good. Yay! Oh, dude, that was a ridiculous amount of work for a very simple job, but we're finally happy with the stance on the car. We've got it back up on jack stands now because we have to finish up the brake job, put shocks on it, and then change the master cylinder, and then bleed it. And then we're gonna go thrash some more. From the driver's seat, but to me it actually makes me feel like it's less of a junker, that it actually feels like it's level. And like when we hit bumps, you don't just feel like the right rear go down. It's like the whole car is more settled, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I was just thinking the same thing. Like the rake kind of gives it a more sporty feel from behind the wheel. I mean, this feels like a muscle car. It's not like Grandpa's car with nose up attitude.
I would say we made this car much more useful.
Yeah.
Seriously, it's like, I feel all we really did was set the stance, change the rear coils, put shocks on it, and put disc brakes. But the shocks made the biggest difference in the drive-around quality of the car.
Well, it was basically like a junker. I would even go so far as calling it responsive.
Yeah, I know. This is way better.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
It's nimble.
That is just shocks right there.
The T37 has won me over.
Well, there's only one way to really prove it.
I can't stay in my seat. It didn't do that before.
6-0.
Okay, that's half a second better, but
Yeah.
man, I was slip sliding away.
That was funny.
Oh,
All right, 6-0.
how am I gonna brace myself?
I'm gonna brace myself. Try not to hit me.
It's hard to control the car when you're...
Hit a quad. $635.
Oh, I thought that was a faster one.
All right, I'm wedging myself in.
I can't.
Oh, dude, 582. Best ever.
Wow.
Oh, man.
Wow.
The Pontiac fears no pothole.
Wowee. That
Ready,
was
Steve?
super fun. Yeah. That's victory, bro.
That was fun.
Yeah.
This thing is good.
I just couldn't believe the tenacity, the grip on the road. Fantastic.
You've got low standards, but it is
Oh, yeah,
really
I do.
good.
I
We
did
like
it.
our Pontiac a lot. I feel like we did less labor on this episode of Roadkill Garage, or less progress mechanically than virtually any time ever, and yet had the greatest result.
Oh.
It looks better.
Yes.
It rides way better, and 7/10 improvement in the 6 Clod.
What can you ask for?
Brody this thing out of here, man.
All right. Try another one. Whoa!
What?
I just got hit right here by GoPro or something. Something just landed right on my arm.
Like a GoPro?
I don't know. It was something about that big. It just landed right on my arm and bounced out. Could it have been a bird dropped dead in midair and just landed on my arm?
That'd be hilarious.
As I just drove by? What's the chances of that?
This time on Roadkill Garage, it is all win. We got a 6-speed manual trans, we got my home-built COVID 350, and we got 56 Chevy, and
It's all glory down the track. Boom.
Our 1956 Chevy has a long history on Motortrend shows. It started out on Hot Rod Garage, where Tony and Lucky bought this 56 Chevy that had been an NHRA national record holder and stock eliminator way back in the day. But it was super rusty and super clapped out, so they bought another chassis, and tech setter Kalen sandblasted it and restored it and made it mint. And then they plopped their hideous body back on it and went to the drag strip, and it was super slow. Now after that, on Roadkill Garage, me and Dulcich ended up doing a body swap. I had bought this 56 body a long time ago, and you may have even seen it in Roadkill Garage episodes because it rotted in front of the shop here forever. But this body is truly mint. So we did that body swap, and then we took it to the Kingman Street Drags in Arizona, where it was hideously slow and had a horrible wheel hop problem. So we're here to fix all those things on this episode of Roadkill Garage. First of all, we're going to install the COVID 350, which is a small block I built using leftover parts in my garage on an episode of Roadkill that was sort of a working from home deal. That engine ended up making 500 horsepower on the engine dyno, and you'll also see it on Engine Masters. Next up, we're going to install an American Powertrain 6-speed manual transmission, and then we have to fix the wheel hop problem, which I think is going to involve cutting the spring perches off the rear end and adjusting the pinion angle. So we got a lot to do, and this time it's 4 days. We're hoping to go to the drag strip on Friday morning. But even if that doesn't happen, this car is going to be amazing. It's time to turn the 56 into a hot rod.
It already is a hot rod, but it just needs to be a fast one.
I'm prepared to ruin this with a 500 horsepower small block. The COVID 350 is coming in. What do you want to do first?
Well, I could do the front stuff. I say we take the front clip off and then try to extract that 265.
Okay.
Let's do it.
Towards me now?
Yeah. I like the 265 and the 3-speed.
Now you tell me.
I know.
No, I do too. We're really going to change the character of this car a lot. It was just like a sweet cruiser before, and now it's going to be all violent and hot rod style.
Yeah, I have to admit that when we were at the street drags, it almost felt like a little inadequate. And you really don't want to go to the street drags in Kingman, Arizona with inadequacy issues. You want to be bold and competent with a 505 horsepower engine, right?
This is the so-called COVID 350. I assembled this with mostly used parts I had sitting around my garage. So here's what it is. Basic 350 Chevy, 30 thousandths overbore, so it's 355 cubic inches. It does have forged pistons for 11 1/4 to 1 compression ratio. One of the secrets to power is the Blueprint engine's 210cc CNC ported cylinder heads. It has a solid roller cam, comp cams 242, 248 at 50, and with the rocker arms that I've got on here, it does have 600 lift. But we ended up testing it on the dyno for episodes that you'll see of Engine Masters using an Edelbrock Super Victor intake and a 750 Holly, and it made 446 pound-feet of torque at 5,200 RPM and 502 horsepower at 6,600 RPM. So it's going to be pretty cool for this thing, especially with the stick. $7 grand.
Right now we're waiting for parts, so there's no actual work happening on the 56 Chevy, but there's this big ugly dent in the quarter panel that's been bothering me for a long time, so I decided to try to do something about it. I've got this suction cup dent puller that I've never actually used. This is going to be the secret to pulling this dent out. That didn't do much. This is kind of textured, so I don't know if I'm getting a perfect feel. Ah, that is no suction. What this is going to come down to is basically the force of the suction cup. It's got to be great enough to pull the dent. So I wet it down with a little bit of glass cleaner to provide a seal. And as you can hear, I have the air compressor running for more air pressure. If we were working on a late model car, that would come out right now, but the metal on this car is really thick. Okay, I don't think I'm going to be able to do it with this, so I'm going to move on to plan B. For my next attempt here, I'm going to use a principle that I learned from the ancient Greek philosopher and mathematician Archimedes, and that's the principle of leverage. I've got a 2x4 tucked up in the quarter panel, and I've got this jack handle, and I should be able to exert a tremendous amount of force on this quarter panel and thereby pop that dent right out. It's definitely moving it. I have to give Archimedes some credit there, but it seems like it just wants to flex. If I reposition my wood, I think it's getting better. I don't want to hurt myself here. Whoa! I think something's actually happened. Whoa! Oh, there goes the GoPro. I don't care. I'm getting the dent out. But actually, it's a lot better.
Wow. That was an annoying dent, and now it's virtually camouflaged. You can't even tell.
I could hardly live with it, honestly.
It was pretty terrible.
Okay.
I think it's good.
If you're happy,
Great.
I'm happy.
Thanks, Dolchek.
Okay. Now
Parts are here. I think we need to move on to motor mounts.
lunch.
Oh, lunch. Let's procrastinate more. Parts have arrived. So the first thing I'm gonna do is install some motor mount brackets so we can locate the engine so that we can figure out where the transmission cross member goes. Now on the 55 to 57 Chevy, they came stock with a front motor mount setup. Unfortunately, they're just way too flimsy for the kind of power that we're making. So I'm gonna convert it to side mounts. These are brackets right here that are made by a company called Classic Performance, or CPP, to convert to the conventional muscle car style side mount. So to install them, I'm just gonna have to knock out some rivets and drill some holes. The other thing to know is that you can get these in either stock location or 3/4 of an inch forward, and I chose 3/4 forward just to give me a little bit more bell housing and distributor clearance. Yes, we are gonna put a stick in it. So you remember American Powertrain is the company that helped me put a 5-speed in my Mach 1 called the Disgusting? Well, the same company is dialing me in this time, except this is a 6-speed. This is a Tremec T56 Magnum. It's very similar to what you would find in modern muscle cars when they come with a 6-speed. This thing is trick because first gear ratio is 2.66 to 1. The sixth gear ratio, and fifth and sixth are both overdrive. Sixth gear is 0.63 to 1. That means the 56 Chevy with a 411 rear gear and 27-inch tall tires is gonna cruise 75 miles an hour at 2,400 RPM, which makes it mint. I love these transmissions. I've had them before in cars. They just shift sweet. They make the car. So now, let's talk about the American Powertrain kit. First of all, comes with a transmission, comes with the shift plate set up for where it needs to fall in your tunnel, comes with a stick, which in this case is aluminum with a really cool ball, and it comes with a center force clutch and a QuickTime bell housing to mate up to your engine. We have a flywheel from them, but unfortunately I messed something up, so I'm gonna explain that to you, what I'm gonna do there later. You'll also get a custom cross member that'll bolt right into your car, the yoke, and a hydraulic throwout bearing kit. So as you can see, I'm super excited about this, and the installation of it is gonna begin with installing a flywheel on here and then the bell housing. The American Powertrain kit comes with a flywheel, but I had told them that I had an engine with a 1-piece rear main seal. The later model small block Chevy, this is actually a 2-piece rear main seal. I switched up what engine I was gonna use. Those two engines, 1-piece versus 2-piece, takes a different flywheel bolt pattern. This is gonna be rad and experimental for me. I got an aluminum flywheel. Check that out. So normally your flywheel would be steel. Normally it would weigh about 30 pounds. This is a billet aluminum flywheel. This thing weighs 15 pounds. So what are the pros and cons of that? With a heavier flywheel, you have more stored inertia, so that when you bring up the RPM and dump the clutch, you've got a lot more stored energy to launch the car. With an aluminum flywheel, you have less of that stored energy. And if you've got something that doesn't make a lot of torque or doesn't have a lot of rear gear ratio, meaning not a very deep rear gear, or something that is really heavy, an aluminum flywheel might be a bad idea. But since I have a light car, 411s, a stick, and a decently powerful engine, I'm gonna try this. So what would be the advantage of an aluminum flywheel? It's so much lighter that it's gonna help the engine RPM faster. It is less parasitic loss because of the sheer inertial weight of the thing. So I've never done this before. We're gonna see what happens, but I'm digging it. So what we're dealing with here is a center force dual friction clutch. Center force has got this special design where it's a diaphragm type clutch and it's got these weights on it that the concept behind them is the higher the RPM, the more these weights add load to the clutch so that it doesn't slip.
The next thing we have to do here is bolt the bell housing to the back of the block. I might have that upside down. Now, if you heard all that racket, that thing knocking around, that is why it's called a bell housing.
The next thing we're doing here is setting up our hydraulic throwout bearing, which is an American powertrain Hydramax. They do take some setup. You gotta measure the distance from the clutch fingers to this surface right here, and then from this surface to here, and make sure that you've got some gap in there so that this isn't just riding on the fingers all the time, so it doesn't heat up and swell and make the clutch release a little bit, and so that it doesn't have too much spacing in it. It's the same as setting up the gap on a mechanical linkage setup. So the way that this bearing works is almost like how a brake caliper squeezes, except for this spreads. So this is the hose with hydraulic fluid going in from the master cylinder that is on the clutch pedal. This is the bleed line, and when you step on the clutch pedal, it makes pressure and expands that throwout bearing, which then disengages the clutch. It's super simple. We're about to install the transmission to the engine. Before we do, let me warn you about a couple of pending disasters going on here. First of all, one of the things that's considered critical here is that you use a dial indicator to make sure that the center line of the transmission absolutely concentric with the crankshaft inside the engine. Here's the problem. This surface can't be trusted to be absolutely round. So they make a tool that you bolt on there in order to do the dial indicating and find the concentricity. I don't have that tool, so we didn't do it. Hopefully not gonna be a problem. The other thing is they say that this clutch and this trans both really want to be broken in for 500 miles. That's not gonna happen either because we're going to the drag strip Friday. Okay, Steve.
I say we just drive it right in there.
There we go.
Maybe I should put this back neutral. It hasn't engaged the
Pilot bearing. See, the whole secret here is you don't want to just ramrod stuff together. There's dowels that hold the transmission or locate the transmission to the bell housing, and the holes just have a little bit of powder coating in them, and it's pulling together really nicely. It's not like we've got a bind in the clutch or in the pilot bushing or any of that. It's going together nice and smooth.
So are you ready for the first test fit here, David?
Yep. I'm really curious where that shifter is going to land.
I think it's gonna land just fine because it's about 2 inches further back than the Saginaw, but we're moving the engine forward 3/4, so it's gonna be 1 1/4 inches back and more in the center line.
Oh man, the precision of Roadkill Garage is just reaching a new high when we're adjusting our shifter position within 500 thou.
I might even fit through the hole that's already cut in the floor.
And in, and okay, it's now ramrodded into the floor. That is a problem, isn't it?
Yeah. Tell me if that gets better or worse.
Worse,
Okay.
better, and worse. We're at the point where the shifter is blocking our progress with getting the engine in place. So I'm just gonna cut a hole in the floor. You can see that there's already a couple holes here for at least a couple transmissions over the years. Yep, all fixed. Good morning, Wednesday. So Dulcich and I stayed here really late last night, just sort of mind surfing the whole 56 drivetrain situation. What I got going on right now is loose motor mounts completely up here, and we're gonna put in the transmission cross member, and once that trans mount finds its happy home, we'll come up here and tighten down all these mounts, and then be able to move on from there. What we're gonna do is bolt the cross member on to the transmission, and once we've got it perfectly located, then we'll make the brackets out here on the sides for the frame to hold it up.
Since we're going to reuse the original transmission cross member, these frame brackets are going to need a little modification. This ear sat on top of the frame rail, and that set the height, and it needs a different height now. So I'm just going to cut that off because we're just going to weld these directly to the frame at whatever height is necessary.
All right, we have the side mounts for the trans cross member clamped up against the frame. I'm going to plug weld them or rosette weld them on. I'm not that great at this, so wish me luck. Ah.
Are you having any luck, David?
No, I don't like it. That second one was just awful. It's barely welded on, Steve. You want to weld it?
Okay, I'm tagged in.
They say that perfect is the enemy of good. So we have no enemies because there is no perfection around here. We just booger welded those brackets to the side of the frame to hold the transmission cross member, but we're happy with it. The next thing that we have to do is get the car back down on the ground, measure up the drive shaft, because we only have a day and a half to get a custom drive shaft. The big deal that's left over is that Dulcich has mind scienced the clutch master cylinder, so we have to make that happen on fabrication. While he's doing that, I'm just gonna be bolting stuff to the rest of the car, trying to make the engine run.
Because this car uses a hydraulic clutch, it also needs a hydraulic master cylinder. Normally this mounts down low right here where the mechanical linkage would come through the firewall. Because it would mount at a steep angle, American Powertrain has this really tricky little bracket that's adjustable for angle because there's not much articulation in the push rod. I decided to relocate it high up on the firewall where it's basically going to be in a straight line with the pedal linkage. So I've removed this part and I'm just going to mount the master right here. Okay, that wasn't so bad. I've got the master cylinder mounted on the firewall. Tell there's going to be a little flex. All of the underdash stuff is in place. It lined up perfectly. I've got a straight shot from the pedal right into the master.
While Steve's over there messing with that master cylinder, I'm gonna try and get the engine all together. So I'm gonna be stealing parts off this engine, which may be familiar to you. Do you remember the episode where I had that really cool 1930 Model A coupe and Steve and I threw together this small block to put in there and went out and did great burnouts? Amazing car, I love the thing. It's becoming a race car with a big block. This engine is back home. The short block is junk. The cylinder heads belong to Steve and top end and everything else is mine. So I'm gonna be stealing the distributor, alternator bracket, and all that's gonna end up on the 56. Carburetor time. Man, I am getting a lot of people giving me a lot of flack for putting a single 4-barrel on this thing because when it appeared on Roadkill, it had a tunnel ram. And now it's got a single 4-barrel on a Super Victor intake manifold that still made 500 horsepower. This is a 830 CFM Holley double pumper. You like it, Dulcich?
NASCAR.
Yeah, how'd you know?
Well, it's the 830.
Yeah. And now, the pièce de la résistance, the fender well headers. Obligatory for the retro style 55 Chevy. Obviously this thing had what's called under chassis headers on it. These are the more cool, like originated in the 60s type of what people would call gasser headers.
Yeah, but all this black header paint's just gonna burn right off.
I think I got these coated. I don't think they're painted.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow,
I know
Freiburger.
they should have been white.
You went all out.
Yeah, cool. These I think actually will make power because they're so straight right out of the collector. When headers have a big turn right out of the collector, that kills power. We found that sprint car headers make more power and these are kind of like that. Stay tuned because you're gonna see these headers getting dyno tested in an upcoming episode of Engine Masters. Everyone wants me to make this car a Blasphemy 2. Maybe I should just make gold headers and they'd call it good enough.
Well, I mean, you don't have a Hemi.
It's a mouse motor. You know why it's called a mouse? What are elephants afraid of?
Oh, a mouse.
And what is an elephant?
A Hemi.
Right!
Ah!
Ding! Ready for the Wednesday late afternoon list?
We need to write down stuff that we can easily forget.
So I already got fuel pump, rod, and plumbing. Let's see, throttle linkage, header gasket, temp line,
Spark plug wires,
plug wires,
drive shaft.
drive shaft, fix wheel hop. Okay, that's the biggie. That's like, I will circle that one and then add a couple of asterisks. So this isn't that bad. We were starting to panic. My plan is to get the engine running, then move on to the rear suspension. I'm going to make the fuel system work. I stole this fuel pump mounting plate off that other engine over there. I'll be throwing that on, but I'm concerned that my performance fuel pump is not going to clear the frame on this thing. Here's my problem. Try and swing this in, and it hits the frame right there. this part, the inlet, hits the frame. So what I'm gonna do is take all these screws out and rotate the inlet and outlet forward, which will actually help with my plumbing anyway. Well, I had to rotate it and use some funky fittings, and it barely fits, but we got there. There's no going back. This is gonna feel like victory. I don't have a lower radiator hose yet, but it's gonna make me feel like the radiator's installed when I put on the upper. Oh, but I can't do it. See, we moved this whole engine 3/4 of an inch forward, and it affected a bunch of stuff, like fan to radiator clearance. You can see that it's gonna have to shorten up this radiator hose quite a bit. Nailed it, first try. Didn't even cut it too short. It's the mark of a professional. The front clip's on, which means we have water in the radiator. It's all hooked up. Now I can finally time this thing. Go. Ready? I'll let you know when it stops advancing. Does it seem to run really bad?
Yeah.
Why?
I don't know what's the advance showing.
This is super frustrating. I finally got the thing so that I could time it, I could see the mark and everything, and the timing mark is just jumping everywhere, which is consistent with the fact that the engine runs ratty and terrible. We went all through and checked all the connections and wires and firing order and all this stuff, and ultimately we're gonna blame the distributor, which doesn't surprise me a lot because we took this distributor out of that engine over there that came out of my Model A that always ran like trash, and maybe that's why. I had this MSD distributor sitting around. It's a locked out one, no advance curve in it, but it needs a box. And I didn't have one, so we started rifling around for that, and Steve found an MSD 6A on his dyno. And so he's gonna go scavenge that. I'm gonna install this in the engine, and hopefully we can solve the problem by replacing every part that we could possibly find. So this was locked out. I modified it with an ignition curve, and now I've got the engine at top dead center on number 1, ready to drop this thing in. I will end up wiring that MSD quick and dirty roadkill style butchery just so we can get this thing going because we're way behind schedule right now. How's that for an installation? Roadkill style.
Huh. Seems all right. I think the tack is just screwed up.
It has no advance. The springs must be flying out immediately. What's it idling at, or we don't know, because, I mean...
The tack is going everywhere from 5,000 to
Let me put my other tack in. I think it's fine right now, but I'm gonna put a different tack in it. That was me grounding out the power, the back of the alternator. Well, we got it running good, and the tack works. That autometer is like steady. It's not all jumping around. It doesn't make the needle go all the way around in circles like the other one did. And once we got it running, we found 2 more problems. First of which is I put a timing curve in that distributor, but it's still acting as if it's locked out. It's like the curve is too fast and it's all the way advanced. It's showing me 35 degrees always, even at idle. So it's almost as if the advance weights are flying out with the thing at idle. So I'm gonna take that apart and put some stiffer springs in it so that we get more of a curve. Other thing is, this carburetor does a strange thing I've never seen before, which is it just drips fuel out of the idle transfer slots in the secondaries. And it did this on the dyno, but I went through it and changed all the gaskets and looked for the problem, couldn't find it, thought I'd fixed it, but it's still leaking. So we're gonna have to find a different carburetor for it because I don't know what's going on with that one. So now we've got the whole tune-up on this thing finished. Timing, carburetor, everybody. We're finally ready to move on to that wheel hop problem. Because of our luck, the drive shaft that we got is completely wrong. We've got that sent out for repair. However, there are a few things we noticed about the rear suspension that make it immediately evident why this thing has a terrible wheel hop problem. Meaning, no traction, tires trying to come off the ground as we launch it. First of all, I'm gonna put this tape measure from the center line of the transmission back here to the center line of the rear axle, and you can see that that rear pinion angle, as is compared to the drive shaft, is pointing way too far up. It should be way down like this. So we have a radical problem there. Secondly, I took the shock absorber off, and you can see
that I've only got 1.5 inches of down travel on the shock. That means as soon as this thing leaves the drag strip starting line and gets any kind of rise whatsoever, that shock is going to top out and the wheel's going to lift up off the track. The combination of those two things are going to make this thing hideous. The first thing that we're going to do is rip the leaf springs off of the rear axle and see what we can do about altering that pinion angle.
Woo! Look, this one's got a booger welded shim on it. Did you see that?
Uh-huh.
You can see that somebody's had this problem in the past. There's a horrible field repair here of like a wedge of metal.
When the job calls for cutting through thick metal, you can toy with the death wheel, but you really want the oxy-acetylene torch. Okay, that's all ready for David to come in and finish the grinding. We are well on our way to fixing this problem. Is it clear? Need to go more in.
If you can get it my way. And safe.
Oh, look at that jack.
Whoa! A warning would have been nice.
I said look at the jack.
Oh, I thought you just let it down.
Fell off the jack, and the jack was on 2 wheels sideways.
Oh, I didn't notice. Well, it's in. Now the process of setting the correct pinion angle. We've got our new spring perches here in between the leaf spring and the axle, clamped down just a little bit, obviously not welded yet. What is pinion angle and why does it matter for this wheel hop problem that we're having? Well, imagine that this is the drive shaft coming out of the transmission down to the rear axle. This is the pinion gear in the rear axle, right where the drive shaft bolts on. So if this is the drive shaft and this is the pinion, and the pinion angle is too high like this, the problem is that as you accelerate, the torque reaction makes that pinion in the rear differential want to climb or go up like this. If your pinion angle is up like this to begin with, and then you give it power and it climbs even more, you get a really gnarly angle like this, and it's more than the U-joint can handle. So what you want to do is actually have the drive shaft and the pinion with the pinion just nose down a little bit like that. The goal being that when you're under power accelerating, it is going to have that torque reaction and pull the pinion up and get them almost straight. So that's your goal. As the pinion climbs, you get, I don't know, 1 or 2 degrees of angle. So that torque reaction is going to help plant the rear end of the car and make it launch. Now I'm going to show you how to find your pinion angle. The easiest way to do it is with one of these digital angle finders with a magnet on the bottom. So most rear axles have a machined flat surface on them which matches the flatness of the pinion inside. So I'm going to put this on that flat surface right there, and then I am going to 0 it. That says 0. Now all I do is move that over to the top of the drive shaft, and it will automatically tell me what my pinion angle is. In this case, 6.4 degrees down. So I've got the pinion down, and the drive shaft's also down just a little bit. Now the unfortunate part is that you really want your U-joints on each end of your drive shaft to have equal and opposite angles so the drive shaft doesn't vibrate. We've got it almost perfectly straight. It's got maybe ½ a degree in it. And the problem is that the transmission is nose down. I really need to jack up the transmission a little bit more. So what I'm gonna do is tack these leaf spring perches in place. Then we're gonna have to take this all apart, roll it upside down, final weld it, put it all back together, and then hopefully it works. Pinion angle is set. The last thing in the rear suspension is going to be shock absorbers. Remember I showed you how the stock shocks that were in here only had about 1.5 inches of down travel? I was able to find a QA1 Stalker Star single adjustable race shock that had a little bit more. I think we now have 4 inches total. New engine, new trans, new clutch, new drive shaft, new rear suspension.
What can go wrong? Let's go try it out.
I know. I'm most worried about the clutch, actually.
Yeah, me too. It's moving. Look at all the dust those headers are blowing out.
Okay.
I think it's pretty good.
5th. 6th.
How's your clutch travel?
I'm getting used to it. It's short.
Yeah. You have to drive like 120 miles an hour to use 6th gear in this.
Yeah.
How is this shifting? Does it seem like you could power shift it if you wanted to?
Yeah, fun.
How do you like your aluminum flywheel?
Oh, I forgot about that.
You like it?
Maybe that's why it doesn't hit hard on the shift. It doesn't have that stored energy.
You know what we have to do, don't you?
What?
We have to see if we have wheel hop.
I know, I was wanting to put a few more engagements on the clutch.
I think you don't need to use the clutch. Just roll into it at low speed.
That's true. That was cool.
Yeah.
It's fun. Did you feel it?
Yeah.
You like jumped up. It's
Yeah.
fun. That felt great.
It was really good. I liked your burnout.
That's fun. No wheel hop.
None.
We won that one.
I know.
Yeah. Okay. Now I'm feeling better. Woo!
Yeah.
This car is great.
Dude.
Oh, we totally changed the personality of this thing, man. It's exactly the level of violence I was hoping for.
It exceeded my expectations. That 350 rocks, dude.
I know it.
How does a solid roller make you feel so good?
Oh man, it just makes your day every day.
It's even better when it's in a 56 Chevy.
Our next step is to go to the drag strip. The suspension on the thing, it's not wheel hopping like it was, but the problem is the car is so stiff. It's totally topped out in the back and it rides like a 3/4 ton truck in the back. The hesitation I have about the drag strip is I don't think it's gonna hook because it's got no up travel in the front, so no stored energy for weight transfer.
But I think it's going to be ready to rip.
Man, I don't feel right. There's nothing left to do. I feel confident going into day
What?
one at the track.
Freiberger-
It makes no sense.
Listen, if there was anything wrong with this car, you would be morbidly depressed.
It's a fact.
Look at that smile.
Okay. Famoso Raceway, here we come.
Yeah.
I love it when we're back at Auto Club Famoso Raceway, cocked and loaded for success.
Oh, yeah. 6-speed transmission in place, small block Chevy under the hood, 500 horsepower, 56 Tri-5.
Yeah, there's no way to lose. Apologies to my friends at Center Force and American Powertrain for what I'm about to do to your parts without having broken them in like you told me to. This is gonna be good though. Hopefully it hooks.
You ready to take it down the track?
I am.
All right.
Suit up, helmet up, ready to go.
I hope he doesn't leave the rear end at the starting line.
Okay. Woo! Now I gotta learn to drive this thing.
Okay, so you ran a 1278 at 112. That thing had a huge bog off the line. You need a 5,000 RPM launch to get that thing to go, but 112 is not too bad for a little 350. I think we can do better than that.
Oh, we're going again. We can make this a lot better. Dude, this thing felt like it popped the front end up in seconds.
That's what we're talking about, 1184. There's our 11-second time slip. I knew that thing had an 11 in it. 115 miles an hour. Wow, that ain't too bad for a little 350 in a Tri-5. There you go, bro.
Yeehaw!
There's that 11 seconds we were talking about.
Dude, this thing feels like it picks the front end up when I grab second.
Really?
It was incredible. I can't believe it hooks that much.
Oh no, this thing's freight train. What did you launch it at?
4. I'm gonna try 45.
5,000. Go 5.
Okay, that was a $4 grand launch. Let's see what it does at 5. We broke the rear end.
Oh well.
Apparently 4 grand is the limit of the stock rear axle.
At least it happened right there. Yeah, this thing is a freaking beast.
Beast!
Beast. The COVID 350 is pretty good. I have to hand it to you, Freiberger.
Man,
Yeah.
love it! This thing is amazing! All right, well, we ran 11s with our COVID 350 and the 56 Chevy, broke the rear end, had a lot of fun, got that precious 6-speed in action. And if this thing runs
Boom.
1150 someday, you will see it on Roadkill Garage. Man, I've never been so happy to break a rear end in my life. Think we can push it?
Yeah.
Or is it gonna clunk? That's broken.
Yep.
Man, this track is good. Nice and sticky.
I know.
This time on Roadkill Garage, back in action with the supercharged Jeep. Get it! And the guys from Dirt Every Day challenged us to have a friendly competition. They just said, bring whatever Jeep you want. And the Jeep that I wanted was anything with a supercharger on it. I always had this cartoony vision of a little squat Jeep with a big blower on it. And so that's what we built on an episode of Roadkill Garage, along with my friend Rick Payway. So after that, we went and did the competition with Dave and Fred from Dirt Every Day. And it was a lot of fun. As a matter of fact, I'm surprised those guys didn't kill themselves, almost knocking that Jeep over on its side in a mud pit. And it was embarrassing because I was stuck in low range and they nearly beat me because I couldn't go fast enough. And so I needed a comeback. So we did an episode of Roadkill Garage where I did a shootout with Dulcich in the off-road Challenger and me in the BJ5. We did mud drags over on his property, and ever since then it's just been sitting because I did break the transfer case output and the drive shaft and a few other things that we're gonna fix in this episode. And then hopefully we can be simpatico, mano a mano, actually riding in the same vehicle at the sand dunes. Are you down?
Oh yeah.
Oh, should we take the hood off?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, there's gonna be rats and spiders. I'm prepared for it. Oh, look at that. I'm glad I tarped this thing.
I tarped it.
I'm glad you tarped this thing.
Okay.
Oh, wow, you actually tucked it in there pretty good.
Yeah.
Here, grab it.
I didn't want your 350 to get ruined.
I think maybe step one is gonna be the traditional pressure wash on this thing because it's got more spider webs and rat poop than I anticipated.
Really?
Yeah.
We'll get a chain and a tow vehicle.
Yeah. Okay, here we go. Someone seriously needs to call in a napalm strike for all these gnats. It is so bad.
Windshield.
Why are you telling me what to do?
I don't want you to miss the spot.
pretty good. Ah. I think it cleaned up pretty good.
Yeah, it looks great.
Yeah, better than I thought. You want to fire it up for motivation?
I want to see if it runs as good as it looks.
I'm gonna have to hotwire it here, so give me a second. Ignition on.
I bet you there's no gas in it. It's been cooking for like a year.
Yeah.
Actually, longer than that. There's nothing coming out. I'm checking fuel.
Does it have a mechanical fuel pump?
Yes.
Okay, let's give it some more.
Okay.
No gas?
I'm sure it all evaporated out.
Pour it in.
Okay.
I will hotwire once again. Oh, that's gonna be a nice fire.
Don't backfire it, and it'll be fine.
All right. Basically, the fuel pump should have picked up gas by now, and it hasn't.
You would think it should have, yeah.
Yeah. Do we have a rat-eaten fuel line so that it's got no suck?
I don't think so.
We got a problem. We need to look into it.
I'm going to commence a complete inspection of the fuel system.
Hey, Steve, there's a hole in the fuel line up here where the rat ate through it right next to the filter.
How do you know it wasn't a squirrel?
It could have been a squirrel, but see how my fingers are wet? That's a clue.
Why do you have an electric fuel pump mounted on the frame rail and plumbed into the fuel system?
Secondary backup? I don't know.
In case of squirrel?
I have no idea. So we fixed that little hose leak. Ready? Okay, that's way better than expected.
Yeah, fixed.
The blown 383 runs mint. No rat-eaten wires or anything like that, so that's good. But while troubleshooting it to make it run, I discovered we need a gas cap, the whole fuel system is garbage, and the throttle linkage won't go to wide open. And fixing that will probably be detrimental to the health of my axle shaft, but you can't have medium open throttle. It just doesn't work that way on Roadkill. However, the first thing that I'm gonna do right now is get under the Jeep and remove that output shaft from the back of the transfer case that actually broke, so I can look at it and see if there's any spline counts or gear counts or anything that I need to know in order to get a new one. Now we get to look at some of the carnage I created in that episode of Roadkill Garage where I raced Dulcich in the Challenger. And at the end of the drag race, I just chucked the drive shaft out of this thing. It scattered everywhere, but it also broke some junk. So let's go through the drivetrain a little bit on this. As you know, I've got the supercharged 383. The transmission is an SM420 old truck transmission. It's a 4-speed with a granny low. It's awesome. It has an advanced adapters adapter that is connecting to the stock Jeep Dana 20 transfer case, and we've got an original Jeep Dana 44 rear end. Now the carnage begins right here, where the output shaft on the Dana 20 broke, which let that drive shaft just fling around everywhere, beat up my cute little Flowmaster a little bit, spread out the ears on my rear differential yoke, and exit the vehicle. To begin the repair, I'm gonna take off this output housing and we're gonna see what we've got. There we go. So you can see the broken stub in there, the output shaft, just totally hammered. Advanced Adapters sells a whole new assembly like this, which has a bigger output on it, so theoretically beefier. So I'm gonna send him a picture of this and tell him what I need. This is the drive shaft that we rescued out of the field after the race. It's broken. You can see it has the broken piece of the output shaft still in there. It takes a yoke with a nut on it, which establishes the preload on the tapered roller bearing that's in this output housing, but not when it's broken in half. But anyway, that gives you an idea about how all these parts go together and how they come apart and how they explode.
I'm honestly kind of bewildered because when I raced Freiberger, he had this blown 383 Jeep against basically a stock 360 Dodge Challenger, and somehow I beat him in every single event. But what we discovered here is this thing is not getting anywhere near wide open throttle. In fact, it's so stiff I can barely pull it off, and then it's just stuck. So I'm gonna go through this linkage, try to find out where it's binding, and I should be able to free it up, get the leverage ratios right so that it gets full articulation. And hopefully, that's gonna pick this thing up a bunch.
I'm still doing recon. I've got the transfer case output figured out, and next up, the shift lever. So I got this thing loose, mostly because it's broken. This is the part right here that is actually responsible for me nearly losing to dirt every day because I was stuck in low range. And it's why I almost lost to Dulcich. This is the transfer case shifter, and it's been modified to fit the transmission swap, and it just broke, and I still have like a stub of it that I need to get out of the transfer case. And I think I'm gonna replace it with a aftermarket cable one. Oddly satisfying. Okay. All right, I need to take this apart.
I've got the linkage disconnected from the carburetors, and the thing is, they're still super stiff, especially trying to open it all the way to the secondary, and they're sticking right there, and they shouldn't. So what I'm gonna do is just pull them off, take them to the bench, see if I can figure out exactly what's going wrong, and hopefully get them fixed.
Here comes our transfer case fix. Remember this guy? It is the output of our Dana 20 transfer case, and it did snap in half right there. Now on the stock one right here, that shaft is 1 1/8 inches. This is a new unit that you can get from Advance Adapters, which is the same company that makes Atlas transfer cases and adapters to put basically any transmission on any transfer case or any engine. So they make this output that has a 1 3/8 inch shaft, so it's a 1/4 inch bigger. It's got a different spline count on the back also. The only real downside to it is that it is 1.5 inches longer than the stock one. So you are gonna have to get a different drive shaft for that reason. But the beef is absolutely worth it. Assembling it is super simple. It's got 2 tapered roller bearings in it and a shaft that runs through it. All you have to do is pound a seal in it, make sure that you've got your assembly in the right order with a little shim in there to adjust the end play. Stick the shaft in and oil it all up, and then just ramrod the nut on the flange of your choice. You can get all sorts of different flanges for it. Simple as that. All right, let's go slam this thing in the Jeep and have it be fixed. Just want to make sure the splines match and everything's happy, and I might have to take the mufflers off to do it. Yep, mufflers are in my way. Okay, I guess I'm hacksawing the mufflers off this thing so that I can install this. And bye-bye.
I'm gonna fix a little bit of a linkage problem, and the problem here is the accelerator pump arm hits the carburetor adapter, and that's preventing it from getting wide open throttle. I've already marked the location of the cut, so all I have to do is give it a quick zip for clearance with the carbide burr, and that'll fit perfectly.
I'm ready for the final installation on the Advance Adapter's heavy-duty output. I've got some grease on the splines here and in there just so they slip together well. Also on this OD, which is a pretty tight fit to the case. I've got RTV on the sealing surface. The Advance Adapters unit uses RTV, not a gasket. And the other thing that's gonna make this sort of entertaining is I've got to put this nut into this groove and get it up in there on that stud, all at the same time as putting this in to the gear. So it's gonna be a little bit of a puzzle, but probably not too bad. And thread it. Okay, I got my transfer case doohickey in. Now I'm looking at my drive shaft scenario, and 13.25 inches. That is bad. So that's between the surface of this companion flange and the center line of this U-joint. And in that distance, I've got to fit a companion flange bracket, a CV joint, and a slip-in spline all in there. I'm just not sure it's even possible. That is very ungood. All right, let's see what we can do.
Another problem I discovered when I was working on this carburetor adapter for the blower is the center bolts did not have enough thread engagement for my liking. So what I'm doing instead is I'm taking a more common countersunk Allen bolt, which means I'm gonna have to countersink this plate so that the bolt fits in flush. Okay, that looks good. I'm ready to bolt the adapter in place now. One of the problems here was the carburetor linkage was a complete mess. It didn't give us wide open throttle, and in fact, it was really binding up. So I went through, readjusted everything, got it super dialed in. So now I've got wide open throttle and the linkage doesn't stick. I'm gonna move on to something else, maybe more linkage on the transfer case.
Let me remind you what we got going on here. The Dana 20 has a really awkward shifter arrangement on it in this thing. There is a hole in the case and a tube slips into that hole and is retained by a couple of bolts. The tube sticks out about that far and is the mount for the shifter. Well, that completely fell apart on me, which was a huge part of my problem in a couple of prior episodes. Now I'm trying to take it apart to put a new shifter in it, and that little stub right there of tube that needs to come out of this hole in the case is rusted in, and it's a nightmare. I don't know how I'm gonna get this thing out, but it's gonna start with fire. I'm gonna try and heat the housing so that it expands so that it breaks that rust seal. Will it heat it enough? It's catching some grease on fire now. Expand with heat. Okay. I'm gonna hope that's gnarly enough. I'm not getting any power into this thing. Hey, Steve?
Yeah,
Can you please take over hammering while I'm holding?
sure. Ready?
Yep. Missed.
I know.
Okay, stop. That's not doing anything. You can't get any power onto it.
No, that's weird. No, I did.
Turning it so the rust is broken. It's freely turning. I mean, it's
Yeah, I'm gonna try
stiff.
prying it out. I'm gonna try to wedge the screwdriver in there. Once it's spun, I mean, it's.
Yes.
Now I can get my grip on it.
Yeah, there you go. It's out. Winning!
When it puts up a fight, it's simply a matter of the correct toolage.
All right, we got this doohickey out of the transfer case. It has been modified in the past for a different kind of shifter and booger welded even worse than I would have done. This is about how long it should have been. And so this is the piece that I'm gonna be fabricating our new shifter out of. It's gonna stick into the transfer case about that far and stick out about that far. Now imagine the transfer case underneath the Jeep. It has two sticks coming out of it that are the high and low, in and out, front and rear shifters, and they go like this. Okay, so what I need is a couple of levers like this mounted to a tab that I will make off of this thing that picks up a bolt right here, and then these will go to those two in and out sticks right here so that when I do this, they will shift. So that's everything that's gonna need to be fabricated. I'll get this thing in, drill a couple holes so it'll mount in there, build a big tab up off here that is pretty beefy, figure out how to mount these two levers through there, then figure out how to get the levers onto those two sticks that come out of the transfer case. It's gonna be quite a bit. That's gonna be a wrap on the transfer case shifter situation. They work good. All right, transfer case done, shifter done, linkage done. But right now we're handling something that people have complained about ever since we introduced the BJ5 and installed this engine, and that is we got a 3D3 small block Chevy with a 671 supercharger on it and stock exhaust manifolds, which is stupid. So we're gonna attempt to fix that. I got some fender well headers for it, and I'm not convinced that they're gonna fit, but we're gonna give it a shot. Got it. Next up, headers. This is also an advanced adapters unit, just like the thingy on the transfer case. We're gonna see if it fits. I think we're gonna pull the driver's side fender off of here because the biggest obstacle is the steering column. So if this side doesn't fit, we don't need to even worry about the other side. The Jeep Universal, so easy to work on. All right, Break the news, Stevie baby.
Oh, no, I can't bear to do it.
You cannot bear to do it.
No.
Okay, let's see.
You know how devastated I'm going to be when this doesn't fit.
Oh, I don't think it fits. Do you have to take the steering column off? It won't fit between the clutch linkage and the column. See, that's trapped right there.
Angle it in there, Freiberger.
I'm trying. We gotta take the column off.
It's hitting the motor mount bracket.
Yeah, it's just pinched between the motor mount bracket and the column. If we take the column off, we can get it in, then put the column back on.
Why does it look like it's not going to be even close?
I don't know, but we gotta try. I think it fits. Oh, there's no possibility this is gonna fit, Dulcich.
That's what it looked like.
Yeah, no possibility that works. Yeah, it's fully ramming into the whole clutch linkage bracket, and once that's out of the way, you got this whole body mount that is gonna have to basically come off. There's no amount of tube bashing that's gonna solve that.
No.
Good thing I cut the mufflers off.
Yeah.
Well, we're officially not gonna have headers on this thing, at least not these headers. These probably fit a CJ2A or something, but they're just not working on the 5. I don't know what to do.
Is it possible to disappoint me more, Freiberger?
Probably. Okay, Steve, ready for the headers that I overnighted from Summit?
Reveal that header, David.
Whoosh!
Ta-da! Oh, wow.
Look at that.
Demolition Derby style.
Yep. I hate to admit it, but I pre-fit this on the Jeep and it's gonna work.
Oh, yeah. Well, those are guaranteed to fit anything.
Yeah.
Straight up.
This is actually called like an upswept header, a demolition derby header, sometimes a tractor pulling header. It's from a company called Schoenfeld. These are dirt cheap. At Summit Racing, it was like 150 bucks or something like that. And obviously guaranteed to fit the Jeep, even though it's gonna be loud. So I got the kind that doesn't have a collector, like all 4 tubes are not gathered together into one, they're all individual. And I don't know what's gonna happen.
You know, the way that frames the whole blower and the look of this thing?
Yeah.
I have to commend you, Freiberger.
Thanks.
That's a good choice.
It's gonna be so loud.
All right, I'll get you some bolts. You can get straight on to bolting that in. How's that?
You're right, good idea. Boomaroony.
Man, that's a tight fit.
You having competency problems over there?
Yeah.
I need that moment of victory, and so we're gonna fire this thing up before we put the fender back on, put a drive shaft in, and air filters.
I just want to hear these pipes. Look at you. You're better prepared than I am.
What?
It's really loud.
It's really loud.
Yeah.
Oh, all the paint is flying off of them.
I'm just personally thrilled with the exhaust system. So
Because of the simplicity of it.
I apologize if I'm being too gleeful here.
You're a little glib.
I know. No, honestly, it's awesome. Just gonna put a spring on it, and looks like that's gonna do the job.
El Fendero. Cool. This is a miracle drive shaft. We went to Mike at Driveline Service of Fresno in California, and he was like, oh, is this for the BJ5? I remember when you guys chucked the drive shaft out of it. So he was able to make a 13.25-inch drive shaft, which is super dinky, and it's got the bracket that's gonna bolt to our companion flange, a CV joint, which I'll explain, a slip yoke, and then of course the U-joint that goes to the rear end. This is really not enough travel for your typical 4x4. If this thing had a lot of spring articulation, it would droop the rear end and probably fall apart. We're gonna hope that doesn't happen with this thing. So what's a CV joint all about? The thing is, normally when you set up a rear drive shaft, you want the transmission or the transfer case and the pinion to have equal and opposite angles on the U-joint so that they operate correctly. The problem is, on the Jeep, they're so far apart that that angle is too steep. And if you actually drooped the rear end, it would get even worse. So what we do is use a CV joint, also called a double cardan joint, and it has got 2 U-joints in it. So here, the equal and opposite angle is in that double cardan joint itself, so it'll turn smoothly. When you've got a CV joint in your rear drive shaft, you want to take the pinion and point it straight to the output on the transfer case. So this thing is going to go in here like this, CV like that, and it's going to be home free. Okay, Steve. No more 2-piece drive shaft. It's in there. It's highly questionable about binding and collapsing too much and extending too much, but it's there.
My level of concern is Freiburger.
Really? Full Freiburger?
Yeah, very low.
Great.
Yeah.
I say let's head straight to the sand wash.
Well, this thing's completely road ready, or off-road ready, to correct myself.
Okay, let's push this junk out.
Let's go. Oh, man.
Here we are at the secret test facility for the BJ5.
Yeah.
Let's say this is an 84-inch wheelbase. What's your guesstimate on power on this turd?
If it's not making high fives, I think we did something wrong.
Yeah, totally agreeing. Let's say 550, 575, something like that. So all we've done with all of our repair work is moved the destruction downstream. We're gonna break either a drive shaft or an axle.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yes.
I can assure you of one thing. This thing will survive this whole day without breaking.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that's the way I feel. My concern level for breakage is nil.
All right, we're in the sand wash, and I guess we're gonna do some blasting around, see how this thing does.
Don't break it right away.
I know. What do you think? I think it's good. It's really strange to me that it doesn't want to pull third.
I was gonna say there's a big ratio jump between second and third.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, first is too low, second is okay, third it just begins to bog.
I think with the secret's gonna be going in high range and then using first and second gear.
That's what we're doing right now.
Oh, Freiburger.
What?
Put it in low range.
I thought you said the secret is high range.
Not in this.
The problem is low range is 4-wheel drive only. I guess we could unlock the front hubs.
Are you in 4-wheel drive?
No.
Ah, I want the full 4x4 action.
No, that's wrong. If you can get there in 2-wheel drive, you get there in 2-wheel drive.
No.
Yeah, it's more fun. That's how
Okay.
you get the slip and slide action.
You can't do low range in 2-wheel drive.
We can unlock the front hubs.
Oh, yeah, we could do that.
Go ahead. It's always the passenger's job to do the hubs. It's a given. Okay, Steve's gonna unlock the front hubs, which means I can put it in low range, but it'll only be 2-wheel drive, so maybe it'll be a little bit better.
Yeah, that's way better gear ratio.
What is that? There's a tire swing.
We found a problem, and the spark plug wires were hitting the headers because they're not tied off, and we don't have a zip tie. But I actually found some flax growing right here on the riverbank. It's like nature's gift because it has a lot of purposes, including tying stuff off. Now, I've woven this into a perfect tie, and I'm just gonna tie those wires right onto the lower bracket here. There we go. Fixed.
Steve fixed those spark plug wires, which is awesome. But then,
that's the starter engaging.
won't crank. You want to get a rock and hit the starter?
Well, you're not gonna fix the starter with a worthless piece of flax.
Yeah, you need rock.
Yeah. Give me one of your extra keys and I'll try just bridging across the solenoid. Make sure you're not in gear. I wouldn't want you to take off.
It is full Switzerland.
Okay. You have the ignition switch on?
It is. He's going to arc across the terminals on the starter with the key, which... Whoa. There you go. Ready?
Yeah.
Great. It had a dead spot in the starter. We could have hit it with a rock, too. Okay. Oh, yeah. Unbuckling for safety.
Freiberger, you always go for the extra degree of difficulty, two-wheel drive.
I know, it was fun. And rev limiter, did you hear that?
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty good.
They're bouncing off the rev limiter, but the 383 is performing flawlessly.
You know, I like to learn something from every episode, and here's what I've learned from our 383.
Okay?
You know how people say if you think about performance, an engine is only really an air pump?
Oh, yeah. Okay.
This one's a water pump.
It was.
Did you see how the water was
yeah.
blasting out?
Yeah.
How does it survive that?
don't
Because
know.
the water blasted for like a good 15 seconds
No.
after the river crossings.
Oh, yeah. It was like a water pump.
What do you think of the overall experience of the BJ5?
It's flawless, just as I predicted at the onset here. It's bulletproof.
Hasn't broken anything yet.
No.
Kind of hard to believe. I think it's actually because we're in sand and soft, you know, goopy, moldy water and stuff like that.
Yeah, I know, but you're putting some horsepower through these boggers, kicking up those rooster tails.
Yeah, and it
No
doesn't
doubt.
even really wheel hop, so I'm
No.
pretty happy. The ride quality is pretty stiff, as to be expected with the early, I think, Rancho under axle leaf spring lift.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the exhaust pipes are a win. Having a supercharged engine and a short wheelbase Jeep's a win. The boggers are a win. The power steering's a win.
I'm gonna say that my experience right now with the BJ5 is above and beyond what I expected when we started the episode. How about you?
I forgot about one more gigantic win.
Huh?
All the water going through the radiator, thing's been ice cold all afternoon.
That's true.
Right?
Water turns out to be a great coolant.
Yeah, so the Tunket, right?
Well, what do you want to do? Want to try and break it?
No, it's unbreakable. It's like the Titanic. Oh, wait a minute.
We're gonna hit it hard. Finally, the BJ5 proves to be everything that I had hoped for. It's a cartoon, and it shreds. But unfortunately, it did not emerge completely unscathed. We arrived with a welded diff. We're leaving with an open diff. Yes, it broke the right rear axle. What can you do?
Oh, well.
Dana 44.
I don't consider that a failure.
Well, the biggest failure about it is that we now have to actually rescue the production crew who managed to get their truck stuck like 3 times today. And this is by far the worst of it. I'm not sure that we're gonna do anything but spin our own tires, but we're gonna give it a shot. Say hi, Taylor. That's our producer.
Yeah.
He's the responsible adult on set. Okay, ready for this?
If only there was something we could do about these headers. They just didn't fit.
It's okay, Steve.
Really?
Because I have arrived with a solution that you will not believe.
What do you have, David?
Oh man, we're gonna be able to auction this thing and save the shop almost immediately when I reveal.
Oh my goodness! They go straight up!
I don't know if I can get this done in time.
Well, you'd better, or you're fired! This time on Roadkill Garage, the crop duster fires back to life.
And in breaking news, hell is frozen over. Steve, I will be super excited if we can actually get the crop duster done.
You know what I'm like? I'm
What?
like an archaeologist of automobiles because this, my friend, is a barn find.
It has
Right?
become that.
You know, like all these guys say barn find, like, is this ever been lost? I knew where it was.
It was more than 1 year ago that Steve finished this awesome paint job. And our plan on this episode is to make it whole, or at least make it run and drive, yeah?
I think I can make it run and drive. I don't think we're gonna get the interior done.
Nah.
But exterior and mechanically, it is going to be mint.
Let's not back the quarter panel into that cylinder head right there.
You have
Gotta
to
move some
turn the
junk.
tires and... Oh, wait a minute.
What?
I've got a vice grip steering wheel here.
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Man, the crop duster. I was just going over the history this thing has with Motortrend shows, and I couldn't believe how long it is. It goes all the way back to episode 40 of Roadkill, where we built this 1970 Plymouth Duster that had been rotting in Steve Dulcich's backyard. And that's why it became the crop duster, because this is the Dulcich farm, as you can tell by the chicken screaming in the background. After episode 40, it also appeared in episode 50 of Roadkill, where we were doing massive burnouts with the thing, and at that point it was powered by the 440 big block that had come out of the General Mayhem 68 Charger, although we had slapped some better cylinder heads on the thing. And in that trim it ended up running 1234 in the quarter mile. But then Dulcich and I ended up putting together a 383 big block that we put in the thing. That was on an episode of Engine Masters where we dyno tested it, and it made 460 horsepower, 460 pound-feet of torque. And in that trim we drove it to the zip tie drags that ran 1206 in the quarter mile. And then it was in episode 2 of Roadkill Garage where we tried to run it again and had a fuel delivery problem. It was in episode 10 of Roadkill Garage where we finally got it to run 1169 at 115 miles an hour. And so because that was so much win, we decided to tear the car apart. And in episode 18 of Roadkill Garage, we stripped it all the way down for paint. It was supposed to just be a quick blowover, but Dulcich couldn't do that. He had to make the thing fantastic. So there's a couple more episodes with paint. And the last time you saw this car was a full year ago. And that's when the actual refinish job was complete. And let me tell you, Dulcich actually did an amazing job on this car. No joke. This thing is show quality. Unfortunately, it sat for a year, getting dusty and hideous, and as you can see, we've bolted on nothing since you saw it last, with the exception of the Shark's Tooth Grill. These are actually reproductions from Classic Industries, and they are really, really cool. That 1971 Shark's Tooth Grill that was only available on 340 cars and Twisters is the key to the whole look of this car. But now it's time to put the thing back together, but with a brand new engine. So in the meantime, we took the 383 out of the car and actually stroked it to 440 cubic inches. That motor with a dual plane intake made 560 pound-feet and 560 horsepower. When we threw a single plane intake manifold on it, it actually made 575 horsepower. But then after the dyno test, what did we do? Standard Roadkill Garage. We ripped the engine apart. It had an oil leak, so we tore the oil pan off, and then we needed the rocker shaft assemblies for a different engine altogether, so it's kind of disassembled. Therefore, the first thing that we're gonna do in this episode is get that 440 stroker back together.
Here it is, the engine for the crop duster. Now, The crop duster had a 383 last time it ran, and this is the same 383 block. In fact, Freiberger's had that 383 block since he was a teenager. We had rebuilt it a long time ago. It ran really good. It ran 11s in the crop duster, but since we had it out, we decided to upgrade it. We ordered a stroker crankshaft from 440 Source. We got their rods as well, and we got custom pistons made for it. That turned this 383 into a 440 because it's bored out 65 over. The top end here is a set of Edelbrock heads that were CNC ported by Modern Cylinder Head. It's got a single plane Edelbrock Victor manifold. That proved to make more horsepower on the dyno than a two-plane. It made 575 horsepower in the form right here, and that's with a flat tappet cam. It's got a custom comp flat tappet. It's 241, 247 duration at 50 and about 575 lift. The reason it has so much lift is because 1.6 to 1 high ratio rocker arms from Harlan Sharp. Those are off the engine now because I had to borrow them for another dyno test on another engine. So what I'm going to do is just button this thing back up and bolt it to the transmission, and it'll be ready to drop back into the crop duster. Oh, man, you'd think this is my first day on the job. I mean, I usually consider myself the wise and all-knowing engine master, but I go and pull a boner like this move. I went to flip the engine upside down, and I forgot I didn't have the valve train in it, and obviously I heard something banging around. I dropped a few lifters right out of the bore. Anyhow, I've got to take the manifold off. They have to go back in the same hole they came out of because it's a flat tappet, and I sure hope I can identify which one goes where. And now, devastation. Ah! Look at that. But I can tell where every single one of these came from. Now, if I continued maybe just one more degree of rotation, they would have been scattered all over. But I can put these all back where they came from, and crisis averted. I've really got a lot of work to do here on this engine, and rather than wait to get the valve train so it'll hold the lifters in, I've got a perfectly clean lifter box. I'm just gonna pull them all out, organize them in here, then I can flip the engine over and get to work on the bottom end. Here's the bottom end of our Stroker 383, and when I first built it, I had included this main cap girdle, but because of the extra thickness of it, it's gonna space the oil pan down, and that's just not gonna clear. It's gonna cause problems, so I decided to omit that, and that's gonna mean replacing these studs, which are made to go with the girdle, as well as these oil pan studs with bolts and other fasteners. So I'm gonna get busy and do that now, and get the pan and windage tray back in there factory style.
Don't hit the duster. Okay, you missed me taking ricochet water straight to the face.
Oh.
But the transmission's clean, it wasn't that bad.
Well, I know you're gonna be feeling worse when I make you vacuum the interior.
Oh, the interior's a mess. Is that the next unskilled job I have to do?
Yeah, I'll have this together pretty quick, and then we can bolt a nicely, freshly clean transmission up to it, right?
So the interior of this car is completely destroyed from sitting around. It's all filled with junk and everything. I guess he's gonna keep putting the pan on, and I'm gonna go clean it out.
I love it when he does those jobs.
I don't know how he expects me to vacuum with this thing.
No, you just need a new filter, David. Here, install this, and your luck will change.
Oh, this isn't Gas Monkey Garage?
I don't like handling the dirty old filter. I will install the new one.
No, you can handle the dirty old one.
No! Ugh, look at that. Don't drip it all over the floor.
How do you get it off?
It pulls off. Ah! Dude! Why did you just do that? I told you it'll boing off of there. You were pushing it from the wrong end. Here, you gotta, no! You can't just put it. In there, you gotta dump. You know what this is. I know exactly what this is, Freiberger.
I'm gonna never have to change the filter again.
I get it.
Don't hit the duster.
Oh, what a...
I got the transmission cleaned up. Steve's got the engine together. We were going to install them, but then we realized that we've got our glass guy coming, and we wanted to paint the dash because this one's all mungy, and so Steve's going to make that happen.
Yeah, you really can't get that low gloss paint anymore, so I'll do a witch's brew and color that up for you. I'm going to use a special mix of paint to paint the top of the dash, and the reason is the factory finish was an extremely low gloss, almost an eggshell. And it's very difficult to reproduce with today's paint formulas, so I'll tell you how I'm going to do it. I'm going to use base, and then I'm going to put 10% urethane hardener in that. That'll stabilize it and make it a lot more durable. And finally, I'm going to use lacquer thinner to reduce it because that's going to flash off quickly and it will lower the sheen even further. Mix it up, and I'll be ready to spray. Oh, those fumes are making me want to cough. I've got the lifters and the push rods reinstalled. Now I've got the rocker arms. Basically, these are exactly what were on the engine when I ran it on the dyno, but the ones that were on it then were mine, so I made Freiberger buy his own. They're 1.6-to-1 ratio Harlan Sharps. That gives us a little more lift than the stock 1.5 ratio. They're expensive, but they're really good. Freiberger got these really cool aluminum fin valve covers. The problem is this fin hits the distributor, so it's gonna have to go away.
Dude.
What?
So I unmasked the dash, and I'm looking at it, even with a light on it, it's incredible. It actually doesn't match the dashboard. It's not flat or dark enough, but it perfectly matches like the interior painted trim.
Wow.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just don't want to change this dash pad because it's so good.
That dash pad's awful.
You're gonna have to give me one.
Yeah, I've got one for you.
Ready to bolt the engine to the transmission?
Yeah.
The first thing we're gonna do is sort out the motor mount brackets and motor mount. This is the Schumacher Creative Services engine swap mount to put the big block in the A body. And you can look on their website, they've got instructions on all the modifications we had to do to the cross member back when we first built this car. One of the things that we have to follow up with though is cutting that slash in the motor mount biscuit right there in order to clear the oil pump on the engine. And we're gonna put a solid engine mount on the driver's side since that's the one that takes all the power of the torque. And it's pretty cool. We found the engine mount in the back of the Barbacuda. And so we're gonna put a solid steel one, and Steve is gonna hack it right now to that angle. We're gonna end up putting the engine in alone and then put the transmission in from underneath. Only because we don't want to scratch our precious firewall. Firewall is safe, core support is safe.
I think you need to pull it towards you.
The headers we're using here are 1 3/4-inch tubes from TTI Exhaust. The question everybody asks about the crop duster is, are you using those headers that you bashed up? But that was with the 440 engine, which is a taller deck height. And this one's lower, and they fit gooder.
More gooder?
Man, looks like the engine's in. Feels like we're almost done. Let me manage expectations right now. By the end of the episode, all you can really expect is that thing running in the car.
We plan on installing the transmission, and we're not using a lift. And when you're working on the ground, you just don't have the right tool because a regular floor jack, it just won't balance a transmission. And you can get a floor jack with an adapter for a transmission, but it's too tall and cumbersome, and you can't even get the transmission in place. So the solution here is just putting this plywood pad onto the floor jack. That leaves it nice and low. I'll put the transmission on top of that. It'll have a little wiggle room, but it'll be nicely balanced and it won't squash me. So the next thing is I've got to lift this heavy transmission and put it on this marginally strong piece of plywood. Doesn't sound too good. There is a possibility that this could result in injury or worse.
So this is a regular old 727 TorqueFly 3-speed automatic transmission with a 10-inch converter, which I'm going to install and probably leak fluid everywhere now. But it's not going in for the next click. Cut to 45 minutes later. What I'm trying to do here is align the two ears that are inside on the front pump of the transmission that go into this notch on the converter. And you also have to sort of center that thing. Aha! Boom! All right, let's install this garbage. Where's Dulcich? Okay, now you gotta push the whole thing and there.
So we're gonna have to take one header completely out.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is gonna be the art of getting the engine and the car up at the same time. Okay, that's all we get.
That's probably plenty.
Try pushing the trans up. Okay, you're good. I don't know how this happened. I was all excited about having the drive shaft, but this one that we were running before is way too short. See the wobble right there? Here's what's going on. This is a slip joint just like the one in the back of the transmission. If I hold it up in there, I can tell you that we have about that much stick out on the transmission, maybe a little more, which seems kind of okay till you stick your finger in here and realize the splines don't start till right about there. So we have maybe 1.5 inches of spline engagement, and the bigger deal is that the bushing in the tail shaft is not really supporting this, so that's gonna wobble around and just be a mess. I don't know how we were running this, but I need to send this out and get a longer tube installed by about 1.5 inches. So I'm gonna pull out the drive shaft, stick this in there to where I want it to be, and measure center line of this to center line of the rear yoke, and we'll get a new drive shaft.
I'm working on the alternator brackets, and the thing is, the brackets here are universal to a 383 and a 440. The difference in deck height is taken up by a special bracket that bolts onto the head, and it's tapped to accept this bolt right here. So it bolts onto these two locations, and it has a threaded portion right here, a hole that'll bolt into, but I don't have that part, so I'm gonna make it out of this piece of aluminum.
Distributor time. You've seen me preset ignition timing a bunch of times on this show. So this time, I'm gonna give you some different info on the Mopar Big Block. So the distributor on the Mopar has a tang on the end of it instead of a gear, which you'll find on a lot of the muscle car V8s. And then there's an intermediate shaft inside the engine, which just has a gear on one end and a rod that goes all the way down to the oil pump. So you can install that intermediate shaft engaged anywhere on the camshaft, but the trick is to take the groove that mates with this tang and have it go perfectly fore and aft when the engine is at top dead center on the #1 cylinder. So I've actually got it set at 20 before, so it's not perfectly straight, it's kind of at this angle, but that's a good way to sort of know in the future when the engine's at TDC by looking at that tang. It also makes it super easy to install, just like that. Line up the distributor with the #1 terminal, boom, ready to put a cap on it and make wires.
Problem here is this overflow nipple under the radiator caps is broken off. There's really only one way to fix it, and that's to solder it back on. So I'm gonna put a little bit of flux on here, get my trusty torch out, and hopefully have this fixed.
This radiator is actually a Mopar B body large style radiator that Dulcich forced to fit in the A body.
Look at that power steering pumps up against the fan motor.
Wow, this thing fits tight,
Yeah.
but good.
Brand new glass. Now, on a project car, the glass is really important. You're looking through it all the time, and even though I removed the original windshield super, super carefully, it was scratched and pitted and stuff like that, and it just wouldn't do. So we actually had a professional come and install this for us, and it's been a couple of years, but really makes me happy.
Man, I've been dreading this job because it's gonna be a pain in the neck. I'm gonna get gas all over me. See, all of the rubber fuel lines back here picking up from the gas tank have turned hard as rock and cracked. So they've got air leaks, they're not gonna work. I gotta replace all of them. Wow, no gas. Good. Okay, so we got 3 incredibly simple things done, and it's only 2 o'clock.
That's an incredibly low level of productivity.
Yeah, I ordered some parts like I do every single day for overnight delivery, and because of the COVID, they're not showing up fast enough. So what can we do?
Nothing.
Fuel to carb, I don't have the parts here yet. Linkage and kickdown, don't have the parts here yet. The coil, same. Boy, we can literally do nothing until parts show up.
I know. It's frustrating, but that's the reality of building the car, Freiberger.
I know. I'm gonna add power steering fluid, which is not even on the list. Boy, this is pathetic when I consider this an accomplishment. We're just so far behind. If I mentioned the crop duster is gonna be 2 episodes, now you know the real reason why. Not gasoline, by the way.
Here's a little upgrade. On Mopar muscle cars up until 1979, you had a 4-bolt heavy cast iron master cylinder. And the thing is, it always looked like junk because no matter what you do, it'll rust up and look awful. Now, the upgrade is the 79 and up aluminum master cylinder, but the problem is it's got a 2-bolt mounting flange, and you can get an adapter like this. This one's from Mancini Racing, and it will bolt in place of the 4-bolt master, like so. And you might notice it's an offset pattern. That's to move the master cylinder slightly to the left. It gives you a little more clearance for the lines and the headers and stuff like that. And the master cylinder here has a 15/16 bore diameter since we're going with non-powered disc.
So it's morning. My buddy Keith Turk dropped by on a motorcycle trip just to help out with a couple of things. We're gonna actually make this thing run today. All of our focus in this episode has gone towards making the engine run. I promised no more, but for some reason it's really been bothering me that I have not cut out the lock cylinder hole in the tape stripe on the tail panel. I have a brand new fresh X-Acto, and Steve stops breathing down my neck. I might
Well, you
be
only
able
get
to have a
one
steady
shot at
hand.
this.
I know.
One shot. I can't watch it.
Ooh, it's pretty bad. I'm sure it wasn't this good at the factory, right? That's always the excuse when you mess up. That's pretty bad. What do you think?
No, that was fine. That's no worse than what the factory did.
It's not that good.
Nice job, Freiberger.
Not that good.
Yeah, walk away.
From here, it's
Oh.
fine.
Yeah, my stigmatism and nearsightedness has that looking just mint.
All right, I gotta walk away. I'm gonna,
away.
well, no, I gotta get this part.
No, just walk away.
Oh, I just made it way worse.
Of course you did.
Look at that.
Oh,
From here, you can't tell. And once it's lowered, you won't be able to tell as much. Once the lock cylinder is...
And you get the taillights in there and the bumperos. Since Freiberger's pouting about butchering the decal at the back of the car, I'm gonna have to install the drive shaft. Now, this drive shaft is all brand new because the old one was too short, and it also had light-duty U-joints, so this one's been upgraded with 7290s front and back, which is the good ones. Well, Freiberger, if it cheers you up, the drive shaft fits better.
Good. Wow, almost looks like a car again.
Well, theoretically, all we have to do is plug in the ignition switch and see if this thing will run.
Theoretically, yeah. All right, this is it. We've got all our pre-checks done. We're ready to fire it up for the very first time in many, many years. Crop duster, don't fail me now.
Is it gonna start?
Just hope it gets oil pressure.
Where's your spark?
Don't know. Okay. Nope. Okay, we got no ignition spark.
How is that possible? The box is good. Are you getting 12 volts to the coil when I turn the key on?
That's not how an MSD works.
No.
I know. Hold on, don't mess with that. Can I have the test light? There's part of the problem. There's no power to the Rodney.
Is the breaker switch under the battery tray flipped?
Yeah, that's what I am looking at. Yes, something's wrong because it won't trip.
Here, let me do it.
There. Now it'll run. Dulcich's theory about the coil is complete bunk.
Brad was like, the coil, check the coil. So I just said, okay.
You always want to rely on the director for the mechanical advice on this show. It's kind of what we do. It's like whenever we get lost, it's like, hey, Brad, what do we do?
Well, the other thing was Alex.
Flip the breaker. See, we should have asked him before.
Camera Alex actually had it figured out way before you did.
Yeah, he admitted to me that Camera Alex knew that it was the breaker, but he insisted on changing the coil anyway.
No, Brad told me to change the coil. I was like, there's no way, that coil worked before.
Brad is higher ranking. You know what else needs to happen is you actually have to plug the coil wire in.
Oh, well, yes. Just waiting to see if you would pick up on that.
Yeah. Now it's gonna go vroom, hada, hada. That's what it's gonna be like. Dulcich, start that engine. Crop Duster lives again!
That engine fired right up when we did what Camera Alex told us to do. Oh, man. The sweet sound of open headers in the morning.
I gotta say, man, I shared your skepticism. I could not foresee a day when the Crop Duster was going to run again. I look back at our whole history with this car, back when it was a rusted, clapped out piece of junk sitting back there in Dulcich's field. We slammed that 440 in it, and later on we put the 383 in it. The greatest moment that I can recall is those burnouts for distance in episode 50 of Roadkill. And now, I finally got the vision, it's gonna happen again. This time with 576, not 575, horsepower from our 440 cubic inch low deck stroker big block Mopar. And it runs, but will it ever drive again? Well, here's the thing. I can only think of one car in my lifetime that has actually run and driven after I got it painted. Usually that's the kiss of death. That's the end of the car. But this one, it's actually gonna happen. Come back for the next episode of Roadkill Garage, because we're gonna finish up the front suspension, get the hood on it, do a little bit of the interior, not the whole thing, get wheels and tires on it, and yes, once again, the Crop Duster will be doing those burnouts for distance. We promise. You ever have arguments with your friends about how many notches on the jack stand are actually a notch? He counts the outies, I count the innies. And so we're always having fights about how many notches are on a jack stand.
That's because you don't count the notches right.
See?
Okay. Yeah. How's the hair, Brad? How's Sierra, Brad? Okay. This time my Roadkill garage, the crop duster is on the road again! Ah! Watch it, Freiburger! This thing's fast!
The saga of the crop duster continues. On the last episode of Roadkill Garage, we got our 440 cubic inch stroker big block installed in our 1970 Plymouth Duster, and now we need to make it a running, driving car.
Yes.
And I think the first wrenching is gonna be front suspension, yeah?
Yeah, actually, I think I will attack the front suspension and I will have you attack the brake plumbing.
Oh, he always assigns me the labor that he doesn't want to do.
What?
Okay.
You love putting in the line lock.
Let's commence with cleanup.
Okay. I've got the shop pretty well cleaned up, so when I first put all the suspension together here, I didn't really tighten the bolts or adjust anything, so I've got to torque everything down. Adjustments made. I'm going to get right into it.
I got assigned to plumb the brakes in the whole front half of the car, which is going to be a giant nuisance. Here's what we got going on here. First of all, we converted to a late model aluminum master cylinder, which replaces that big old clunker of an iron one that would have come stock. We've got a Mancini Racing adapter block that also offsets the whole master cylinder to the outside of the car, just for more clearance to the engine. Now, the thing I'm gonna have to do is install a line lock, which makes it so you step on the brake pedal and it holds pressure to the front brakes but none to the rear, so that you can do burnouts, which is really good. And then I also have to install the adjustable proportioning valve, which goes in the rear line, and it adjusts the brake pressure when you stab the brakes so that you don't have the rear brakes locking up before the front, because if you do that, it tends to make the car come around. So that's an adjustable proportioning valve. The problem with all of this is you have to figure out where you're gonna mount all of this junk, and then how you're gonna plumb it in and out without getting all of the lines absolutely everywhere. So I've got hours of frustration ahead.
That's one job done. I'm going to be putting in these QA1 double adjustable shocks, and even though they look brand new, these are actually the ones that were on the car before. And I've got to say, I'm pretty proud of myself for keeping all of this stuff together. I've also got the braking
which is at least 50% of this job. The problem now is I know I'm gonna mount my roll control down here, but I can't get a drill motor in there, and we don't have a 90-degree drill motor. And I think what I'm gonna do is line it up perfectly with this factory stamped hole that I can see from the other side, so that I can hopefully get this thing level, which I probably won't do, and then I'm gonna be really irritated by that. That will land there. Now I gotta drill the other hole. Let's see if I got it straight. This is the moment of truth. By eyeball, that seems good enough. Right now I have to hog those holes out, bolt this in lightly, and then figure out if I can actually make those tough brake lines to go out to the wheels.
I'm going to launch into something that's not super technical, but is super satisfying, and that's putting on an emblem. Originally, these are retained with a one-way push-on metal clip, and they're super hard to remove. So here's a little tech tip. You can use some tight-fitting vacuum hose, and then I'll put a little silicone sealer inside. That'll hold it. Don't worry, it'll never fall off. But the thing is, if you want to take it off, you can remove it pretty easily. So let's see how it looks. I'll call that installed.
I'm still doing brake hard lines, and I'm gonna show you how to make a double flare, because this is the greatest tool in the shop, and I haven't showed it to you for a while. So here's what's going on. I've got my piece of brake hard line. I've already cut it to length using my tubing cutter. After I cut my tube, I take a drill like that, and I'm just going to deburr the end of it where I left a little bit of slag in there. And then I have a very fine file where if it's not perfectly square on the end, I'll make it perfectly square. Then I'll take the burrs off like that. This one's already pretty good. Next, this is a hardline flaring tool that we got from the Eastwood Company, and it is fantastic. But what I'm gonna do is double flare a 45-degree end onto my 3/16 hardline. So I've selected the right jaws for that, and then I am going to clamp that hard line in place and tightening that down pretty hard because you don't want to push the hard line out of the tool. Now, this rotating wheel right here is like the roulette wheel of tubing sizes. And what I'm looking for is operation 1 for my 3/16 hard line, which is right there. Once I've chosen it, all I do is grab this lever and pretty much pull it until it won't go anymore. Now I'm gonna flip this around to my operation number 2 for 3/16 hardline and do the same thing. Boom, pull that out, a perfect double flare for the end of my brake line. Watch, put that fitting on, perfectly concentric.
This is the linkage for the column shift setup. It was modified and put in the car a long time ago, but wasn't given any attention beyond that. I'm gonna clean it up, give it a coat of paint, and then put it in.
It's so ridiculous, but that took about 45 minutes. This goes from the roll control halfway over to the other side of the car. I'm gonna have to couple it in the middle because I can't get one piece all the way across. So that's just one piece of the brake system. Now I have to do master cylinder to the roll control, master cylinder down to the proportioning valve, roll control to the left side, roll control to the right side. It's a lot. Another one done. Kind of proud of that one. Look, it's got the springy thing and everything. Watch this. It's gonna go through this little hole to the bottom of the roll control, and then this one's gonna go right in there. Boom.
Mechanically, there's not much more I can do on the car until we get it on the ground, so I'm moving on to the interior. The first thing I'm gonna look at is this dash pad. I've got a good reused one to replace it with, so from there, I might move on to the carpeting. Well, I'll just see how far I get. See you later. Okay, new one going on. I pulled this one out of my 70 Dodge Dart Swinger, and I styled Freiberger out by giving it to him. That's way better.
It was gruesome, but I made it happen. I got all of the hard lines done. The only one I'm really proud of is this one, which perfectly matches the curve and the drape of the one right next to it. It's almost as if they were made for each other. Tighten those down and we're good to go. Plum brakes, done. So all we have to do mechanically now is bleed the brakes and set the front end alignment, and I'm pretty sure everything else on this list is cosmetic, just finishing up the paint job work. Steve's actually restoring the instrument cluster right now, which is pretty cool.
So what I'm gonna do is I'm separating those two pieces, and then I'm gonna refinish the bezel. Now, I'm not gonna try to make it resto perfect, but I can certainly make it look a lot better than it does now.
Man, this interior is gonna be nice.
Yeah?
I just wish we had a new dash pad, man. That cracked one that you had
What?
on there is, what?
Where did that come from?
You've been stepping over it for about a year,
Oh, you bought one.
long ago.
See, you knucklehead.
Me?
I just installed that. Oh, man.
Besides, now you're well practiced for installing that
I can call
thing.
you a knucklehead for that one.
Me?
Yeah.
No! Rear view mirror. Okay, got the rear view mirror on there, but here's a new item for the list. How do you get this much overspray off glass?
I had installed this used dashboard, but Freiberger had forgotten that he bought this brand new one, so it'll look even better. Oh, That's the world's easiest dashboard install. All I have to do is put the fasteners in there, and that job is done. Once again.
I'm finally going to install the Duster decal that I've been waiting for. We've got our Valiant badges, which were 1970 only, by the way. I'm going to just center this thing, and by center it, I mean between the underside of the badge and this body line. Soap it up a little bit. There we go. And done. Perfection. Oh man, that looks cool. Steve, do you want to look? It looks great.
That's exactly where it was.
Yep.
Perfect.
Mint.
I'm pretty much done. Yeah, I nailed it. Just want to give it another coat for texture, and this thing's going to be perfect.
Brand new door handles. Tech tip, you do have to wipe Dulcich's blood off everything before you install it when you're here at the Roadkill garage. Fun facts to know and tell. It's good cocktail party fodder. Okay, let's see. There you go. All set.
Freiberger is making a big deal about overspray all over the glass. But the thing is, whenever you're doing an extensive paint job like this, you're gonna get debris on the glass unless you take it out, and we left it in. So first step at cleaning it, just using regular spray-on glass cleaner, and then you can just use some sparkle. It's an industrial product you can get at your glass supply, and it takes some light overspray off. If you got some really heavy deposits, you're gonna have to razor blade it, but you can scratch your glass, so you better be careful if you're gonna do that. I'm gonna avoid it at all costs. You don't wanna use an excess amount. It starts to dry up.
On one hand, every single job I do takes longer than I expected just because there's more fiddling with aftermarket parts and chipping a paint and cleaning a windows. But that said, we are knocking them down. There you go, door lock, cylinders, and trunk. In fact, we're doing so well that we're gonna call it a night. We're gonna come back tomorrow and attack it again and bask in the glory of the crop duster.
I still have a couple parts of the car that need to be painted body color, and that includes the side marker housings and the gas cap. Now, the rear side markers and the gas cap are brand new and they come already primered, but I've had to restore the front housings and I've stripped them by glass beating them. But rather than just mix up 1 tablespoon of primer, I'm just gonna hit them with this Spray Bomb self-etching primer from Eastwood and then let that dry off, give it a tiny scuff, and shoot all the stuff with body color.
Last night I had some time to think about priorities, and I realized I promised you that the crop duster was going to run and drive by the end of the episode, and secondarily, it was going to be looking good with all of the trim and everything to match the new paint job. So I'm going to begin this morning by putting the bumpers and bumper brackets on, and here is a tech tip. If you're working on a Mopar and you're wondering which part goes on the right side and which goes on the left, it turns out that odd numbers are the left-hand side of the car, driver's side, even numbers are the right-hand side of the car. I remember that from when I worked at the Dodge dealership just out of high school.
I'm just gonna paint this stuff outside because there's hardly anything to do and I don't want a bunch of overspray in the shop, and my paint garage is full right now. Believe me, it's gonna turn out fine.
One of the most important things is knowing when to just walk away. This is done.
This is a moment Steve has been waiting for, I don't know.
Don't say 3 years or I'll be upset.
I know. Putting the bumper on. We got new bumpers, front and rear. We don't have quite enough bumper bolts. I ordered every single one that Summit Racing had. I got the ones from Classic Industries that are really good. They're not just like a cheap chrome bolt with a big dome. They've got the stainless steel cap on them, and they're all flat, which is like the good kind. Is the license plate perfectly centered in the center of the grill?
Yes.
I'm installing it. Oh man, easiest ever.
Freiberger, it ain't cool if your chrome don't shine.
Yeah.
Whoa, that is nice.
Man, the tail lights are like an important part of the whole je ne sais quoi, the 70 and 71 Duster, and these are pretty trashed. And I tried to get new ones, and they were on like terminal back order, so I'm gonna have to restore these, polish them up, paint them black, all that stuff.
The next thing I'm going to work on are these stainless steel reveal moldings. They go around the windshield and the rear window on the Duster, and they kind of frame them, and if they look shabby, it kind of lets the whole car down. You can polish these by hand, but they're still going to look dull, I can assure you of that. So what you need to do is a pro-style polishing job. I've got a loose polishing bonnet in my drill press set at high speed right now. How you use it, you turn on the buffer, apply the compound, which comes in a hard stick, and then just start polishing. Now the thing is, you've always got to get the wheel turning off an edge. If it catches an edge, all bets are off. You'll break the piece and ruin it. I've got the reveal moldings all polished up, and I've got new mounting clips installed, so this should just hammer right in place.
Yay! That took about 2 hours, but completely worth it. Completely restored, new foams, and oh, look at that. Totally worth it. Mint. The next step towards making this thing run and drive is the brake pedal push rod. We have an aftermarket master cylinder, an aftermarket offset bracket for the master cylinder, and an aftermarket push rod. They don't all go together, and this is going to be the victim that's going to get mangled to make it all work. This is my late model master cylinder. This is my aftermarket push rod, which has a groove in it just like the original old Mopars that takes a little rubber bushing in there, and that rubber bushing snaps into the end of the master cylinder to keep the push rod from falling out when the brake pedal retracts. The problem is this master does not have that groove in it, so I'm gonna have to figure that out. This master that's similar has the groove in it. You can see though, this one is a 1-inch bore right there, and this one over here is bigger than that. And so I'm gonna have less hydraulic pressure with this new master cylinder and probably not as good a pedal feel on this deal, but this one has the snappy thingy in it. And so there's just gonna be a lot of fiddling here to get this to be the right length and to retain in the master cylinder.
I made a mistake when I was working on the side marker assemblies on the bench. On the front, on the Duster, you can't put the lens in until the housing's actually bolted in the car. So I had to remove the lens, which is a little tricky, but luckily it came off without breaking. And now I'm actually gonna put it in the right way. Okay, done.
I'm also having to grind down the outside diameter because it rubs on the brake pedal. The pushrod story is coming to an end. I had to shorten the threads, shorten the body, cut down the OD of the body so it didn't hit a bracket underneath the dash, and then to put it together, I didn't have a jam nut, so I had to Loctite it, and then down here, I've got the little rubber doohickey that I told you about that retains the pushrod in the master cylinder. Unfortunately, I decided I'm gonna have to go with that other master cylinder that I had because it was machined for the rubber doohickey and the other one wasn't. So watch how this thing's just gonna pop into the bore here and retain that pushrod. And boom. Now it's retained and won't come out.
Okay, the job here is going to be attaching the steering column coupler to the steering box. There's spline, and sometimes it takes a little work to line it up just right for the roll pin that locks it off to go in.
We've sort of given up on getting the interior done in this episode, so we're not putting the instrument cluster in that's getting so perfectly restored. It seems like it's all the way up against the firewall.
Probably because this pot coupler's got to slide on the shaft.
Yeah, I can wiggle, I can't push. I'm gonna tap it and mangle the bail.
I don't want to mangle the bail.
There's this bail on a little box that has little shoes in it that connects the steering column to the thing, and it's a Mopar disaster. I don't know why they did it that way.
Turn it clockwise.
Okay, clocking.
Stop.
She's having to tap this thing to get the splines to engage up to the point where we can get a roll pin in it.
So I'm going to put the pin in that's going to lock down the steering column to the box. And because it's way down in there, I'm going to use the socket and extension as a punch and drive it in.
Yeah. Wait. I think the socket's bottomed, hasn't it?
It is now.
Yeah. Good?
Oh,
Mint?
factory, man.
Now I have to go under the dash and bolt this whole shebang back up, and I think this job's done. Man, we had a complete brand new TTI exhaust system for the crop duster all the way out to the rear bumper, but we're running out of time. And so we're gonna use the original exhaust system. You know what makes this kind of nostalgic? Pieces of this were actually from the original Motorhome 440 powered General Mayhem 68 Charger. And then we put it on the crop duster, and I don't know where Steve went, and so Wiley is gonna jump in and help me throw this thing under the car. So we're finally gonna put the wheels and tires back on and drop this thing on the ground.
All right.
Okay, let her down for the first time in a long time. When the car was up on jack stands, it actually flexed so much that we couldn't adjust the doors, but now it's on the ground. I'm gonna install new strikers, and then we're gonna get into making them work right.
What I'm doing is adjusting the striker pin, and if it's misaligned, it can actually blow out the door jamb area, especially on these A-body Mopars. Now, what I did is I just lined up the height that it needs to line up with the latch, and you can eyeball it right through the gaps. And then I took a guess at where it needed to go as far as in and out, and I set it right here. It proved to be a little bit too far in, so I set a couple of guide pieces of tape to keep my reference, and I'm just gonna move it out a little bit, and then I'll try again. Okay. Okay, that's pretty good.
Here we go. Well, the crop duster. The mechanical is done. The body is all finished with the exception of weather strip. And so, surprise! Here's what's gonna happen for the interior of the car, which we're actually not gonna get to in this episode, but we do need a seat. And if you've never seen this before, you're probably a little shocked. Yes, it is green with yellow plaid. So one of the things I really wanted to do with the car with the black and white motif is have some color to make it pop. It had a factory green interior, and we're going with this again. This is a factory 1971 seat pattern. I paid a fortune for this because I think it's original material. This gives me a flashback to a car that a friend of mine had back when I was in high school. One of the very first cars I ever rode in, and one of the very first that I ever drove, and the first I ever got in a crash in. It was a 71 Twister with this kind of interior, so I had to have it. I know it's crazy, but it's fantastic. So we're gonna throw the seat in this thing, and then we're pretty much ready to take it for its very first road test. This is the end of a big journey for me and the crop duster because honestly, I loved the car the way it was when we started, that beater street race look. But it had a couple of problems that just couldn't stay. One of them was the big hole in the driver's side A-pillar, and also the crumbling lead at the bottom of the cowl, but look at those spots now. They were really the only two things that I worked on the car myself. Well, that and a little bit of the right rear quarter panel. Everything else you see here is pure Steve Dulcich work, and he found out that a Duster has a lot of body lines in it, a ton of facets that made it very difficult to get perfect, but perfect is what he did. It looks amazing in that factory Alpine white color. I've also got to thank Classic Industries for all of the little detail restoration parts that make this car flawless, especially that 1971 Shark's Tooth grille. People say that getting a car painted is not very roadkill, but you know what? I say look at the last 3 years of backyard labor and bootleg techniques handled by Steve Dulcich, and that was very roadkill. But the result, maybe not so much, because the crop duster is truly mint.
Well, it still needs an interior and weather stripping and like 78 other little details, but I promised you running and driving by the end of the episode, and 3 or 4 years later, that's what's about to happen. Except you know what, Steve?
What's that?
Since the last time you and I drove this car, we have touched every single fastener in the entire vehicle. Every one of them.
From now on, you're keeping it clean. Let's hit the road and see what this thing will do.
We're about to dust it out for the first time. The Duster will be dusted.
Should happen.
Here we go. Oh, power steering still works mint. Really? For one time, I am not going to be doing burnouts on the way out of here.
No.
Fan on.
It's been a long time, man.
It has.
Dude, I can't believe it's been that long since this.
The full bro,
I didn't know
dude.
we're into bro shake already?
Yeah.
Are we bro shaking this early into it?
The success is already here.
How's the alignment?
Pretty good. Feels weird.
Yeah, it does, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I don't know if this carburetor is that great because we tried it on the 56 and we didn't like it.
I know. But man, we're running and driving in the crop duster.
There we are.
Dude, it basically never ends.
No, dude. I was like, he's gonna lift. Okay, Freiburger.
Dulcich, they told us if we couldn't get the crop duster running and driving, we were gonna lose the show.
Oh no! Hit it, Freiburger! Let off it, man. It just never stops. Wow! Talk about burnouts for distance, dude.
That was awesome.
Bro shake.
Bro shake.
Boom.
Crop duster is back.
Oh, meaner, better, badder than ever.
Bigger, better, faster, louder.
It is.
All win, baby. All right, Dulcich, well, that's the end of this part of the crop duster saga.
I think that the shakedown run proved very, very adequate, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think our most success ever, honestly.
I mean, we just slammed this thing together, untested, took it out, did the most massive straight line burnout for distance of
Ever.
any-
Yeah. No, it's really
That's
good.
a-
You know
yeah.
what, Dulcich? I got to give this to you. You essentially gave me this car. You assembled the engine. You painted it. This thing is all you.
Well, I broed you out, bro.
Yeah, you broed me out. Crop duster wins!
Yeah.
Never thought I'd see this day.
Here's the little inside baseball. Now, every time we get done with an episode of Roadkill Garage, we end up with this situation. A complete mess of the whole shop. Now, I just get my ear chewed off because I'm the guy that's supposed to do it. You know what? I am the host, and I am just not going to deal with it. Brad? You clean it up.
Oh man, you should see my reflection in the bumper, Dulcich. I'm stunning.
I definitely got the wrong hammer for that job. The Crusher Impala's been to the drag strip a dozen times. Has it ever run in the 10s? No! Have we tried really hard? Yes! Will it do it on this episode?
You bet.
I hope so. It's another Crusher Impala episode. You remember the last time this car was on Roadkill Garage, we took it to the drag strip and we had a huge problem. It wouldn't shift no matter what. I think it ran in the 1120s anyway.
Yeah, it did.
So Steve and I are out troubleshooting the thing because, man, it's another episode where we got to get this thing into the 10s. How come I have so many cars that have to run in the 10s even though they're not really drag racing cars?
You're David Freiberger, baby.
I guess so.
I mean, you're at 1120s without being able to shift, so you're pretty close.
Remember it did that and we looked at the video and timed it and it was on the rev limiter for like almost 2 seconds?
I know.
For some reason, this thing worked perfectly up till now, and now I can't get the thing to shift right.
It was on rev limiter for a long time, more than 2/10. I can give you that.
So the shifter is a problem, but look at that, it downshifts into every gear.
Yeah, but you're not on the stick.
I know, I don't understand why it shifts. Even doing a burnout, it'll shift. First, second, shifts hard. How am I gonna test this without killing everybody in a quarter-mile square radius?
I'm more concerned about this like 4 or 5 square foot radius right here.
I know. Okay, I'm gonna try not to spin the tires. That was wide open throttle and it didn't shift till I lifted.
Yep.
So it won't do it at wide open. Confirmed.
Confirmed.
I know I want to finally put a good shifter in it. This is not going to cut it. You know what else I want to do on this episode if we can?
What? Oh. It's horrible having power steering without power steering.
The worst. Ready for rolling burnout?
Sure. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
It bogs though. I need more squirter. You know what? By the time we're done with this episode, this car is going to be flawless.
Oh, I agree.
This is the 1969 Chevy Impala known as the Crusher Impala, and blasting it around just now reminded me of exactly how much I love this car, which is kind of surprising considering I used to hate it. I bought this thing for, I can't remember, $1,500 or $1,800 way back when we were doing a Roadkill episode with the guys from Mighty Car Mods. And what I wanted to do was impress these Australian guys with the most ridiculous engine in the largest barge I could find. Over the years on both Roadkill and Roadkill Garage, we've just slowly progressed this thing and it's gotten better and better. It does the most awesome burnouts. It blasts the highway, no problem. You can drive it 75 miles an hour all day. And you can take it to the drag strip, and therein lies the problem. The big block Chevy has been rebuilt. Me and Steve did it on an episode of Roadkill Garage. It's 498 cubic inches. It has a tiny camshaft, tiny Brodick cylinder heads, mid-length headers. It is not built for giant power. What I'm planning on doing here is primarily fix the transmission that won't shift. You just saw that. And the worst thing about this car is that the power steering has been dead forever. But number one priority is make it shift and get it back to the drag strip. We're gonna jack it up and look at the little pressure modulator doohickey on the side of the transmission, and maybe even go so far as to drop the pan and get ATF all over the floor. And then we're gonna discover that we don't know how to deal with the automatic transmission, test drive it, it'll still fail, and then we're gonna change the transmission.
Ready for it to come down?
Yep.
Now here's a little tech tip for you guys. You may think that jacking only the front is going to make it intrusively low in the back. But because of controlled jack stand placement, you'll notice that the car will actually teeter-totter and it'll lift the back end as the front end comes down. Pay attention and don't miss it. Here goes.
Whoa, what was that?
That was the teeter-totter action.
Wow, something made a loud cracking sound.
Well, that might be the jack stand failing.
Neither Steve nor I have any idea how to actually fix a Turbo 400 automatic transmission, but we're gonna give it a shot anyway by throwing parts at it. What I'm working on here is the vacuum modulator, and the job of this thing is to regulate line pressure in proportion to engine vacuum. So at part throttle, at higher vacuum, it would have lower line pressure, and that would act on the governor to make it shift sooner. This is not shifting at wide open throttle at all, and what I don't know is if perhaps boost from the blower has blown out the diaphragm in this, and if it did do that, I have no idea what it would affect on the transmission. Here's my old vacuum modulator right there, and here's the new one. You can see that they are identical, except for that the new one has an adjustable doohickey inside the vacuum port, so you can make it shift sooner or later. I'm gonna leave it at the factory setting for now. I got the new modulator in, and now we're just gonna drain the fluid and see if it's more burned than I think it is, or if there's any chunks in it or anything like that. This is where I'm gonna get ATF all over my hand, right? No. Oh, the filter's just about to fall off.
Really?
Yep. Wow. That's super bad. It can't be. Okay, this is weird. That bolt is fully ramrodded and it's still loose. There's no way that's supposed to be loose, is there?
What I want to do here is cut open the transmission filter so I can pull out the filter media and inspect it for debris. It kind of gives us an idea of how much wear and tear there is on the transmission or if there's any component failure. I caution you to use extreme care because the edges are very sharp. Not a damaging amount of debris. This filter element has been doing its job, but then the corrugations of metal in the filter body had a massive amount of debris. That would have circulated through the transmission before it ended up in the pan and sucked back in. Whether or not that's problematic, we're gonna see when we test drive the car.
Man, I just Googled Turbo 400 filters, and it turns out that looseness that I was seeing is normal. I should know that, but I didn't. Turns out everybody asks that question. You can bolt it up solid, but I just lost my spacer for that. It's weird because the bolt that comes with it has a stop on it that leaves it kind of loose. Really strange to me. Obviously, this is my first Turbo 400. And next, I'm gonna see if I can get the governor out here. It might hit the floor. There we go. That is the governor. It's got weights. And as it spins, those fly out from centrifugal force and adjust shift RPM at wide open throttle. There's also a valve inside it that needs to move freely. And I'm gonna go get a tiny screwdriver so I can check that out. There is a valve inside this that needs to freely move up and down. And you can see right there, sort of that valve. Now watch, I hold the weights in and tap it. Now you can see that that valve has moved. This gap is up here at the top. But watch what happens when I let go of the weights. Shoop, it moves up. So that thing's moving all freely and perfectly. I guess I'm just gonna reinstall it and cross my fingers. I haven't found anything wrong with the transmission so far. I'm gonna button this up, we'll put fluid in it, and we're gonna go test drive it again to see if maybe new fluid, different filter, different modulator, see if one of those things fixes the problem. Not a speck of metal out of the engine.
Great. Well, you know who built it.
Us.
Yeah.
Well, we changed the modulator, changed the filter, changed the fluid. Check the governor. What are the odds it's fixed?
100%. How's it feel so far?
I feel great in the Crusher Impala.
I know you do. You love this thing. The only thing that would make it better for you is if you had a nice stogie.
Actually, it needs a cup holder. Oh, I'm gonna make a cup holder off the shifter stand.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, that's the rigor for Freiburger. That's the way you do it.
Yep. Wow, look at all that oil pressure with the new oil.
Zowie, that's a lot of oil pressure.
Yeah.
This car makes good rubber smoke.
It really does.
Yeah.
All right, how are we gonna find out if this works?
We have to roll into wide open throttle in first gear manual and then shift it.
Yeah, it's kind of scary.
Or leave it in drive.
Yeah, I just want to roll in as easy as I can, you know?
Yeah.
Fixed! Boom!
That's a bro
Boom!
shake.
Boom! Boom!
I knew
Wow.
it. I knew it'd be fixed. Actually shifted pretty sharp too, didn't it?
Yeah. How did you know it would be fixed?
Wow, you know, sometimes you just have a sixth sense about transmission repair.
I had no expectation of that working.
I told you 100%, remember?
Really?
That was pretty slick. I liked it.
That worked great. I got to do it again, though, just to make 100% sure.
Oh, I know.
I did short shift it.
That's because you thought it would lay on the rev limiter, that's why.
Yeah, well, and I didn't want to kill us.
Yeah.
We're going to take the time we saved changing the transmission and fix the power steering. Works fine.
Never been better.
That was great.
As long as I've ever been in this car, the shift quality's never been better than
I
that.
think you're right. How come?
That modulator.
Works perfectly. It shifts now.
Yeah.
It's fixed.
100%.
Yeehaw!
Yeah.
We don't have to change the trans.
I know.
I do want to put the shifter in it.
Yeah.
I don't want to go down the drag strip with a column shift again. Wow, look at the vitals. This thing is just great. This might be my best car.
I think it probably is.
Is this better than General Mayhem? It does better burnouts. Faster. Transmission won't shift. Ready?
Fixed.
Bye-bye. I can't honestly tell you what fixed the transmission.
I can.
What?
The things we did.
Oh, sure. That's what happened. We touched it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like Fonzie. It's like, Hey, fixed. What do we have to do now? Shifter, power steering box, alternator bracket maybe, and an AFR gauge. So shifter, I think, is our plan for right now.
That's probably the biggest fabrication job we have.
Yeah. This is a really sad moment for me because the column shifter on the Crusher Impala is about to go away. I love the column shifter for the sleeper aspect of it, for the luxury barge aspect, but unfortunately it's just gotten too dangerous on the drag strip and doing burnouts and stuff like that. So we're gonna install the Hurst quarter stick. Watch this, that's first gear, second, third, neutral, reverse, park. You can see that the deal with this is that you can't accidentally shift to the next gear. And that's what makes it good. It's a cable type shifter. And the way these always work is the cable comes out of the front of that thing, and I am going to have to route it through the floor, back to the back, and then around to the transmission. So it goes on basically like that. It's always a little bit of a struggle. The other thing that we're gonna have to do with this shifter is make it clear the bench seat. If I just bolt this to the floor, it's gonna be too much of a reach for it. So we're gonna make a little platform for it and bolt it to the floor and weld it all together so that it holds the shifter where we want it. The first thing I'm gonna do is go underneath and start bolting together the stuff that goes on the oil pan rail to hold the shift cable. I already found a problem with the shifter installation. This is the new arm that goes on the stud that comes out of the side of the transmission, and it needs to pivot like this in order to shift, but the cast aluminum transpan hits it. So I'm gonna have to clearance it. Hopefully I can get this angle grinder up there. Fixed.
One of the things that we have the opportunity to do is incorporate cup holders in our shifter mount. Because back then, cars did not come with any cup holders. What I'm gonna do is size one of these 1-inch drive sockets that'll give me the perfect diameter, and then I'm gonna make hoops out of this 1/8 by 1/4 inch flat bar. That's the perfect size right there. And I'll just use this 1-inch socket, vice grip this on there, and then wrap it around, and I'll make a ring.
While Steve's working on the cup holders, I am starting the shifter platform. So we're gonna have a plate just like this, and then a couple of rods extending down to another plate on the floor to raise the shifter about that much. I got this marked, I'm gonna go cut it. Here's my plan. I've got the plate on the bottom of the shifter. The shifter is gonna be offset towards the driver's side so that it's easier for me to reach, and Steve's cup holders will both end up on the passenger side. I took some 1/8 inch plate and cut it and bashed it on the anvil to perfectly contour it to the shape of the tunnel of the Impala. I've got 2 of them that'll go right there, and I will have some 3/4 inch tube that will stand the shifter off from the floor. So my next step here is to make those pieces of tube, to contour them to the shape of those plates, and to weld it all together. Look at the cup holders. Now here's the most amazing part. You know when you have to drill holes through carpet, whether you're putting in seats or seat belts or a shifter or anything like that, and you touch the carpet with the drill bit and the carpet just unravels and wraps all the way around your drill bit. Well, check this out. The Unibit doesn't do that. Look at that. All the way. No fraying, no nightmare. By the way, I did check underneath the car first to make sure we weren't going through anything critical, but yeah, that did it. What I'm gonna do is bolt down these 2 vertical bolts and then come back and drill the holes for the side bolts. That is rigid. Yes. It's all bolted in with cup holders. Here's first gear, second, third, neutral, reverse, park. That's a bam. Sorry to see you go. Uh-oh. Why won't this move now? There we go. What's gonna happen now is I'm gonna mount this part of the cable in a bracket that's already bolted to the transmission. This little doohickey right here goes through the arm that actually shifts the trans. And it's threaded so I can go in and out and adjust it so that the shifter gets every gear in the detent perfectly. Okay, will you put it in reverse? All right, now go all the way back to first again. I've got it. There we go, found the right cotter pin. I'm bending it over, and the shifter installation and adjustment is done. Believe it or not, we're finally gonna fix the power steering on the Impala. If you've seen the past few episodes with this car, you know that the power steering box that we have leaks horribly and is super notchy, and we've been driving it anyway, and it is awful to drive. There's nothing worse than a power steering box with no fluid being pumped through it that you're driving with manual steering. And we have to be able to throw this car around and do donuts. So finally, the new box. Here's the thing I always fear about these. This is a Saginaw box that was used in a jillion vehicles over the years, all the way up into the metric years, and that's your key to failure. These 2 fittings right here are so often metric from rebuilder shops. And so what I'm gonna do as step 1 is take the hoses off of the car and check these plugs in that box to see if it's a match. Also, when you've got a box, I would always recommend before you take it apart, trying to count the splines that are here on the input side. That's hard to do, impossible with the column on, but usually you can look at the underside and count the splines sticking out of the bottom of the pitman arm. So those 3 things need to be verified before we bolt this in. All right, this is gonna be a fight of some kind, I'm sure. Oh, got it. What's weird here is that I'm using a metric wrench to take this apart. And if this is metric, it means this box has been changed at one point, which would be really strange. There's the return line. Now, I believe this one is bigger. Yep. Oh, that hurt. I knew that was coming. Steve test fit those plugs, and it looks like we're good to go. He's about to take off the giant nut that holds on the pitman arm. Then he's got a puller that has to pull it off. Wow, that was easy.
Came right off. It's always good to have the right tool. What I'm using here is a dedicated pitman arm puller. It's a heavy-duty pulling arrangement with the screw, and most of the time, this tool by itself will remove the pitman arm, but sometimes it's stuck so hard that you can impact it with an impact wrench, which you probably shouldn't do. Do as I say, not as I do. I'm going to use an impact. Sometimes you actually have to get your oxyacetylene torch out, and while it's under tension, heat up the actual spline area of the pitman, and that will get it off every single time. Wish me luck. I don't want to have to use the torch, but if I have to, I'll fix it with fire. Like butter. Look at that. Off.
to face the reality that we were denying at a very high level, which is that the header needs to come off in order to get the steering box out of the car. We don't like it. Steve's removing the collector right now, and I am taking the header off very poorly. Header out! Man, that's great. This thing needs more bashing. I can see a silver witness mark right here where the steering box was hitting it. Ugh. I took the header completely out of the car, and so we're gonna make clearance. Heat it up, and I'm gonna bash it with a hammer.
I can do my part.
Yeah. You know it's bad when you have your eyes closed and you can see the header anyway. Ready? Oh, like butter. That was some clearance. I'm not even having to bash. This is the way to go.
What I'm using here is the rosebud tip. It has multiple flame points, so it really heats up fast.
Mint. Look at that. On a very early episode of Engine Masters with me and Dulcich and Steve Brule, we very famously did a header bash test where we dented a whole bunch of tubes and proved that it really didn't matter to horsepower. So that's what we're doing here. Look, it's just that easy tap. Nice body work in that thing right there. I feel pretty good.
On a very early episode of Roadkill, I bashed a set of your headers and I upset Freiberger on that one.
That's how you became a Roadkill star. This is your first episode. Finnegan and I came here and we were putting a 440 into the crop duster when the crop duster was still junk. And Finnegan and Dulcich just completely bashed my brand new $1,000 TTI headers right here.
Destroying your headers really pays off, right?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, I should do it more often.
There you go. Yep, you made it.
Not quite. Stuck right there as far as I can go.
Yep, it's hitting the header.
It's pretty heavy. I'll pull that up there.
It is. Okay, try now. Try now, I've got it way out of the way. Okay, there you go. You're in. All right, I'm gonna go move to bolt position, okay?
Yeah.
Just to hold it for you.
Yeah.
That's not going in, is it?
No?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Whoa! You okay?
Yeah. Luckily.
You're just all over the header. You're in the collector. Now the header will never go on. Hold on. Okay, there. That's in.
Okay. Now put the screwdriver in. That's good.
It was a real struggle to get the power steering box in place. Now we can't get the header back on, of course. So I'm taking out this side of the motor mount bracket and we're gonna jack the engine up on this side to get the header in. Okay, with the engine jacked up, should slip right in, and it doesn't. Now, all right, your turn. There we go.
Now,
that's gonna be
lower
it.
the engine.
Yeah, here it comes down as slow as I can.
Stop there, put a bolt in it.
Box is in, header's in. Now I'm gonna drop the engine and hope the motor mount lines back up. Should go. Yep. Is the header touching anywhere?
Don't know.
No. Okay, we did that.
To put the power steering belt on, we have to take off the blower belt, which captures it. But that's a fortunate thing because we're also going to change the upper pulley, speed blower up a little bit, get a little bit more boost, and hopefully a little bit better track performance. So I'm going to knock the bolts off of that, pull that pulley off, and then change the belt to the one that works with the new smaller blower pulley, and my job here is done.
Steve, my dear man.
Mr. Freiberger.
It is a tale of two pulleys, one of which I would argue is substandard. The other has a certain je ne sais quoi.
Je ne sais quoi. Yes, and I would presumably wager that it is this pulley with the je ne sais quoi.
Emmy, here we come. All right, I have a 57 pulley.
5 and a 7.
Yeah, and we took off a 58, so that's only a
That's
one,
only one
two.
That's not very, that's
I
not much of a
know.
difference.
Whereas this 52, I think, puts us at 1 to 1. This one is smaller than the crank pulley, so this will be overdriven by a tiny, tiny percent. This is probably like 1% over or something like that. I went soft. I installed the not full party pulley. That thing right now changed us from 7.6% underdrive to 5.5% underdrive. So it'll give us a tiny speck more boost, but hopefully not enough to break my cast crank. Now I'm gonna fire it up, bleed my power steering, and then I'll move on to that air-fuel ratio gauge. I'm nearing the end of the fiddling. It's gadget time. This is an Innovate air-fuel ratio gauge that will also tell me blower boost. It's super good. Unfortunately, a rat ate the wiring on my old one and shorted a couple of wires, and it doesn't work anymore. So I'm just gonna be unplugging the old one and plugging in the new one. Should be super simple, but then I'll show you how it works. The gauge is all installed, wired up, and it lights up, so I assume that it works. The next thing that I'm gonna do is change my oxygen sensor. This is the thing that goes into the exhaust pipe and compares basically the fumes in there to the fumes out here, and the gauge calculates it from a measurement called lambda and tells you the air-fuel ratio. If you have an O2 sensor installed in a pipe and drive it around without having it be heated by the electrical system, then it fails, and so my old one is junk. Now I'm going to install the wiring and plug this into the exhaust system, and I'll be done. If you're welding a bung into your exhaust pipe for one of these, you want to put it in the top of the pipe or maybe at a 45-degree angle. You don't want it on the underside of the pipe because condensation will run into the sensor and kill it. It's a pretty lame zip tie moment, using a zip tie for its intended purpose of zipping and tying. Honestly, these air-fuel ratio gauges have become a huge benefit for tuning, especially for carburetor guys, because all of a sudden, you're not like reading spark plugs and stuff. You know what your air-fuel ratio is. So on a naturally aspirated muscle car type engine with a carburetor at wide open throttle, usually we're looking for about 12.4 to 1 to 12.8 to 1. For a blown deal like this, we'll often run them as rich as 11.8 to 1, just to help prevent detonation under boost, and that's pretty rich. If you're naturally aspirated, you're going to be in the scary zone if you're wide open throttle at RPM. Anything that's a bigger number than 13, like 13.5 to 1, 14 to 1, that's when you're going to start to hurt parts. But let's see if that gauge is actually working. There we go. I called it. 10.5 to 1 at idle. That's really rich. Anyway, it works. All I have to do is put the slicks on it and we're ready to go to the drag strip. Once again, here we are at historic Famoso drag strip. Steve?
Yes.
We're gonna go through the motions here, but really it's a foregone conclusion. Very anticlimactic what's about to happen.
Really?
Oh yeah, we're just gonna roll out there and run like, 1084 on the first pass and pack it up and go home.
Well, you're minimalizing this, but to me, it's the accumulation of my dreams for this car. Even though it's not mine, I feel like a certain sense of pride of ownership. Is that possible?
No, I like it when you get attached to my garbage.
I know.
The Crusher Impala's never been better than it is at this particular moment. What do we got? 498 cubic inch big block Chevy.
Not just any 498 big block Chevy, but one that we built with our own hands.
Bare hands.
Yeah.
It has a quick performance 9-inch with 350 gears, and it made 530 horsepower to the tire.
Now you just go out there and get it done, bro.
How many times has this not happened?
Every time.
This is it. I hope this is a one and done. If the car hooks up, then I think it runs what we need it to run.
The burnout could have been a little hotter, I think. It's all going to come down to traction off the line and whether that transmission's shifting right. I think we have enough horsepower to get this done. I've got fingers crossed.
Steve will just keep talking if I don't stage, so I'm staging. Ooh, just tickling it.
Shift! Ah! What happened there?
I lifted because I thought it wasn't shifting, and then it shifted. It takes longer to shift than I anticipated. So that wasn't gonna do it. We'll have to go right back.
11:25, so a couple of tenths off. I don't know what happened on that 1-2 shift. I'm just gonna have to talk to David. I really can't identify what it was, but I heard a stutter.
I think the governor weights in this thing don't want to shift to like $7 grand. I think is the deal. All our vitals are looking good.
What did that sound like to you, Khalid?
I don't know, it just sounded like everything shut off.
It was like a stutter.
Yeah.
All right, no big surprise there. He's going straight back to the starting line. That tells me one thing. He already knows what he can do differently. Is there 3/10 in Freiberger's mind right now? I think so.
No idea what it ran, don't care.
I'm confident. He's got something in mind here. I hope he knows what he's doing. He's got a lot of experience with these things. Let's see if it pulls a tire off the starting line. All right, that shifted a lot better. No stutter, he's shifting at a lower RPM. $10.96, yeah! That's our 10-second time slip. Read them and weep.
Well, it spun the tires pretty hard off the line that time, but it went through the gears. I short shifted first, second, because I thought it was just gonna keep going, but the transmission's working. It's weird, the car is geared so high with that 350 rear gear that it doesn't go third gear till almost in the lights. Uh-oh, Steve's got a good look on his face.
What'd you say?
I said you have a good look on your face.
Check it out, bro.
Done.
Yes.
1096 at 123.61, which is the fastest it's ever been.
I need to look inside the mind of Freiberger here.
Okay.
Okay, because it seemed like there was a stutter on the 1-2 shift. And I thought if Freiberger knows, he's gonna drive right past me, straight up to the starting line, and make another pass with an adjustment.
Well, I short shifted 1-2 really badly. It shifted at like 6,000 RPM.
Yeah.
And then the thing is, the gear in the car is so high, you don't shift into third until you're at like 1,200 feet.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
I mean, if
the
this
worst.
thing had a gear in it, it would be much quicker.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, it felt like it was just driving over the tire off the line. It felt like the tire's too soft and it was balling up. It seemed like it wasn't shifting. and then I freaked out and lifted because it's got no rev limiter on it.
Right.
And then it shifted, so I just kept going. And the second time I thought, it's just gonna shift.
The second time it was,
So it went.
it was just,
Yeah.
it was a baby cruise pretty much.
Oh yeah, totally.
Yeah, I just thought
Yeah.
it was like,
It is.
yeah.
The car just takes a beating and doesn't really care,
No.
except for when it breaks.
Yeah,
But finally, it's a 10-second car.
it is.
I always said that if it just did it, we were gonna pack it up and go home. It's good enough.
No, you're gonna go again.
We have to.
Yeah.
Here's what we're looking at on the track. You can see it in the marks here on the track. There's one there, one there, one there, one there. The tire's so soft that it sort of cups and wrinkles right on the ground.
You can see it all the way
Yeah.
out.
With more air in the tire, it won't wrinkle up like I was showing you on the starting line. With a big, heavy car like this, with a reasonable amount of power, it's not uncommon to have to put more tire pressure in the tire. So what you're gonna see is that the tire's not gonna hit the track as hard, it won't wrinkle as much, and it won't wad up on the track surface as much if we put a little bit more air pressure in it.
Okay, so we've already had the money round. We have our 10-second time slip. Now it's just all for ego gratification. That was a nice launch. I think he's winding it out a little higher too.
I think that was gonna be better.
And the number is?
1095.
1095. Okay, we shaved a hundredth.
It left smooth, didn't spin the tire, higher shift point. I think that was gonna be good. That time it didn't feel like it left as hard, as violently, it was smoother. So we'll find out if that's quicker.
Whoa, Nelly.
What?
Yeah, you picked up 100th.
100th?
Yeah, it slowed down though too. It ran 121.94, and it was at 10.95 with the one.
So either it really doesn't like the higher shift point, or it got hot and slowed down. Either way, that's a big win, Steve.
Oh.
That's a goal we've had for this car since day one, and now it can go back to a gentle life of relentless burnouts.
Burnouts.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what it's for. Crusher Impala for the win.
Do you remember when we dragged this thing home to my place and the whole engine was just swamped with water?
And we rebuilt it from scratch.
Yeah, we did.
How many episodes has it been between then and now?
You can never have too many episodes with the Crusher Impala.
That might be a fact, as
Yeah.
we're proving. Finally, after so much thrashing, we went, what was it, 1095, and that pass was 100.
Xin chào tất cả các bạn đã quay trở lại phần 1 của mình. Hôm nay mình sẽ đọc cho các bạn tiếp một câu chuyện. Xin đọc cho các bạn lại một câu chuyện của Oai ơi, tiêu chảy phải làm sao? Mẹ con nói là con bị rối loạn tiêu hóa. Có đúng không cô? Cô Oai ơi, đó cũng là từ tường rừng để chỉ tình trạng đường ruột của mình không khỏe. Tiêu chảy là từ dùng rõ hơn để chỉ đường ruột đang bị bệnh và phải ra pu lọc con ạ. Bệnh này có nguy hiểm không cô ơi? À, có thể chứ cô Oai ạ. Đôi khi bệnh tiêu chảy trở nặng có thể làm chúng ta tiêu lỏng thường xuyên đến mức bị mất nước hoặc làm cho cơ thể bị bệnh nặng đến mức cần vào bệnh viện để điều trị đó con. Tuy nhiên, may mắn là những trường hợp nặng này chỉ là số ít mà thôi. Đa số các trường hợp tiêu chảy thường có thể tự hết sau và ngay con ạ. Trong thời gian bệnh, đường tiêu hóa sẽ yếu hơn bình thường, lại làm chúng ta bị giảm thêm ăn, dễ nôn ói và tiêu phân lỏng nhiều lần. Chúng ta nên đi khám bác sĩ nếu tiêu chảy kèm sốt cao liên tục không hạ. Tiêu chảy kèm phân có kèm phân có nhầy máu, đau bụng rất nhiều, nôn ói nhiều, lừ từ, mệt mỏi quá mức. Hoặc nếu chúng ta có bất kỳ lo lắng gì khác cần bác sĩ kiểm tra. Cô Hiền Hòa ơi, con có cần lưu ý gì khi bị tiêu chảy không ạ? Có đó cô Oai ơi. Chúng ta nên cố gắng ăn uống, mặc dù có thể không muốn ăn gì cả. Chúng ta nên ăn uống lượng ít thôi, nhưng thường xuyên hơn để vừa giúp cơ thể có sức chiến đấu với bệnh vừa giúp chúng ta không bị ói khi ăn vì đường tiêu hóa đang bị bệnh. Đây là phần 2 của mình. Các bạn nhớ xem nốt phần 3 nhé. Cảm ơn các bạn đã lắng nghe.